And as I get up there to kind of going to throw some game at this little chick in this Mercedes that I could pretend was mine or whatever she wanted to think, I couldn't even figure out how to get the window roll down in the damn.
You're like, where's the wheel?
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, we put a lot of food in the ground every year, seemingly more and more, and we have a ton of fun with it during the off season. There's some struggles that come with it too, though, right? Obviously, the back of my truck is evidence, right now. It's a couple weeks after I jackknifed, a 4,800-pound material spreader, as I was coming down, and it was too much weight for my truck there. But, all those struggles aside, Deer Grow really has been a staple for our food plotting process for several years now. Yes, we like to put lime and fertilizer on the plots, if we can, but there are some that it's just we're not able to get to them, or it's not feasible for us to get out of state with that stuff. And so Deer Grow is kind of the quick and easy, but still super effective option for us to be able to get the most out of those food plots that we can every year.
Yeah, and we're guilty of overanalyzing things just like everyone else, but that's the best part about Deer Grow is that it's going to create healthier soils, which in turn makes better food plots. And the fact is we can simply spray plot start or plot till when we put the seed in the ground, and then when that plant starts to grow, we hit it with boost. And we know that we walk away, when we come back, it's going to be a great looking food plot. For anybody that's looking to try Deer Grow, if you use the code HUNTR15, that's HUNTR15 at checkout for deergrow.com, you're going to save 15% on any of your Deer Grow products. It's a great way to get started on this and just see what the results are for yourself.
Better food plots, bigger deer.
And we're back.
Hey. Oh, sorry.
Hey,
there we go.
Hey.
Single syllable AO.
Yeah. HUNTR Podcast 165. And Nick is not here to keep us in line. He is snowed in on the mountain.
Got some weather today. I'm kind of more slushing than anything.
It's been weird, man. Yeah, we had kind of what was supposed to be like a pretty significant snowstorm. It's January 9th for anyone listening. We had what was supposed to be a pretty significant snowstorm this weekend that kind of just like floundered out, like didn't even produce anything.
My attentiveness to the weather app, in October, November, it's every 5 minutes I'm refresh.
Yeah.
What's the pressure? What's the wind direction? And then after whatever it is, Christmas, I'm just like, it's gone. It's pretty much gone.
Yeah, I did. It was weird. So I guess we both hunted in Ohio. You had your doe fest at the farm. I went down to Southern Ohio to the farm. Sloppy. Just like rainy and sloppy.
Slop fest and doe fest. I know you kids like them sloppy.
Yeah, I know you kids like them sloppy. Billy Madison, great movie.
Mm-hmm.
You guys put a hurting on them.
Plenty of slop, plenty of does. And before I get into that, I'm going to thank everybody for tuning in, for listening. As you guys know, we drop these episodes every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. So wherever you're listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we appreciate you tuning in. Please subscribe to our channel. We do see comments and stuff like that. I see you guys writing in from time to time. We are trying to get back to everybody as promptly as we can. But just know that we see you. We appreciate you listening, and thank you for being here. So.
Okay.
So into Doe Fest, I was trying to tally, and I kind of have lost track because there was, I'm going to say off the farm this year, we shot like 16 or 17.
Okay.
Of which I want to say maybe 2 were not successfully recovered. So I'm counting those as deer that we took, but I don't know for sure. I mean, we put a solid effort into tracking those, but we processed ourselves a good number of them.
Yeah.
So my dad had picked up that new, is the brand Meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is actually a partner of our guest, which we can get into at some point. But, and there he is. He's muted up in the corner there. I didn't realize I didn't take him off there. So if you could see that, there he is. But
yeah.
So we ground a bunch of,
that grinder is mean, man.
Oh, there was no hesitation.
Yeah.
Like
it's got
everything we put into it. It pumped out the other side.
It has a double grind feature on it. I think it's the one I sent. Yeah.
Well, it just has 2.
So it goes
plates.
through coarser and then finer.
And there's a smaller, even finer if you want.
Yeah, if you're going to do sausages and stuff like that.
So we double ground everything.
Yep, correct.
We had like an army of people, right? That's how we shot that many deer.
Little assembly line.
And so we got all the silver skin off, got everything all processed clean. Let it harden up overnight.
Sure.
So it was not frozen, but firm,
stiff.
And then got everything through once, and then and also put some pork fat in the first time that it was going through, and then combined everything, and then put it all back through again with the finer grinder, and then a lot of it we put through the press.
Oh, you did sausages?
We did a lot of sausages, yeah.
Nice.
So actually, I had some this morning with my eggs.
Oh yeah? Did your dad do the hot sausage one? I know he bought some.
Yeah, we did half hot and half mild.
Nice. It's good stuff.
Half mile. So yeah, we had a good time with that, and it's kind of stressful, just we put so much time and effort into the farm, and to have, I mean, we had a crew of not first time hunters by any means, but I mean kids and.
Yep. It was muzzleloader season for Ohio.
Muzzleloader season, and so it's like I'm really stressing the issue here of like, listen, if we're not shooting button bucks and we're not shooting shed bucks, like I don't want anybody to be on edge, but like if we do that, like,
well, you've got enough deer at that place too. Like they don't have to feel pressured. Like the first deer that steps out, like, well, we got to kill this deer.
Well, and that's what I was trying to stress to everybody is like, listen, it's not that real. Like they're just does. Take your time. If you don't kill it, it's fine. You're gonna have another opportunity. Yeah. So far so good. I mean, I think we were really successful with that. It was interesting. We actually cut into some of these does to see. I mean, they're all
the embryos.
They're about a month and a half pregnant at this point.
I have a picture on my phone of the one I shot last night, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, and you hate to see, so like on some of these does we're pulling out, they've got a set of 2 bucks or something like that. So you can determine sex at this point. And so, there's kind of a weird mental, my dad's trying to wrap his mind, like, are we shooting too many does? Is this what's the right number here? And ultimately, I think those bucks would have gotten displaced anyways, and it's just part of it.
It's a perfect time. I mean, a lot of people are hesitant, and we'll talk to our guests about this. A lot of people are hesitant to shoot does in the late season for a variety of reasons. It's the best time to take the mouths off the ground as we get into this like really stressful period of like end of January through green up, and so yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I told a guy, and even so I shot one last night with my bow,
compound
behind the house. Yep. Shot with the Hoyt behind the house, and like my food plot's like gone. I mean, it's
mine
just
has
flat.
been too. Nebraska plot.
Yeah, and so like clearly there were too many deers, too many deer to support.
You put bulbs on, like decent.
No, it actually, well, I mean a little bit, but not great,
either.
because that drought is when they really laid into it in October.
Drought, and mine got planted late. Like I like that mid-July time frame, and what I have right now is, I think, justification for that. It's like they just didn't have time to develop enough.
Yeah, so I mean mine was mowed, and clearly that's saying that there were more deer than that plot could handle. So like obviously if I get a chance to shoot a doe, I'm gonna take a doe off of it.
Shoot some, yeah.
Yeah, so shot one last night, and yeah, it was fun. It felt good because I've got some time in Ohio, but Pennsylvania and Kentucky both end, I think, on Monday, the 15th. And so that may be the last deer I shoot this year. So to end with like, just a clean bow shot, double lung, fallen eyesight, like you feel good about hanging her up after that.
Definitely.
So, yeah. But we got a guest today, cool one. Obviously talking about Hoyt and bow hunting and meat on the grinders. Today's guest is Michael Waddell. And so we've known Michael for probably 8 or 9 years now. We had a relationship on the Stone Road side, and I think I'd met Michael a couple times previous to that. But just we were kind of talking about it pre-podcast. Like you almost say one of the OGs, but I mean, like Michael was saying, this is kind of all he's known. Literally as a teenager getting into the industry, and turkey calling, and then Realtree. Like ultimately, Michael has been through all the ups, downs, ebbs, flows that we've seen in the hunting industry and in the hunting space. I mean, through the build-up, through the heyday to, whatever you want to call where we're at now.
Yeah, I mean, who's seen more of it? We talked just briefly before we got on here. It's like, to the point where you're saying like, the Michael Waddells of the industry, it's just, you can put him at the, as like a cloaking title over,
he's the Kleenex, demographic. He's the Kleenex of the TV hunters, right? Yeah, that's the brand name that you lay out there.
Exactly. And so like a lot of the, the ups and downs, the transitions, ins and outs of the industry is like, we kind of use Michael as a frame of reference for the conversation in that. Cause it's like, man, look what, look how he handled it, or look how a certain scenario affected him, or how those guys continued forward with the fact that they're still doing bone collector. Like, dude, I have to ask them, like, how long it's been. Has it been 20 years?
Yeah,
30 years that they've been doing that?
No, it's not been 30 probably, but it's been interesting. I've
been watching them since I was a kid, since I was 10 years old. I can remember watching bone collector on TV.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. To think about, and also with that. I think those guys have evolved to what has changed here over the last 5, 6, 7 years even, and there's a lot of people that didn't. And so probably one of the reasons that Bone Collector's still standing and some of these other ones, have kind of faded off. So yeah, I mean, cool to get Michael on and talk about that. I think the other big thing is, obviously Michael's a Southern guy, a Georgia guy. And if you think about the TV atmosphere, especially in the deer hunting side of things, most of these guys are Midwest guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where they make their basis. That's kind of their home front from a TV and a content standpoint, and here's this guy from Georgia, making a big run, obviously including turkeys and stuff in it as well. But, if you look at it from that side, I mean, it's really been kind of an outlier in the group of what everybody else has looked like.
Well, there's probably a reason for that, or like a diagnosis. Like as a general statement, you could look at and say, man, big deer come from the Midwest. And,
Sure.
and over the years, the industry has become about big deer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think before that was a thing, it was about personalities. And
Yeah.
personalities come from the South.
There you go. That's it. Well, let's bring in Michael and get this thing rolling.
Right on.
All right, man. Appreciate you joining us this morning.
J&J Music Factory.
We've been talking about this for long enough. I told Jared the other day, I was like, we're like, wow, who should we get on this week? We got ATA, it's a short week. And I was like, let's text Michael and see what he's got going on.
It's always.
I know it.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm glad y'all had me. I was beginning to think, I was like, why do these guys hate me? I've been listening to y'all podcast, and it's like, we talk, we talk, obviously, Stone Road side of things. We work together. And I'm like, man, I don't know why Jeremy and Jared hate me so much. They won't even have me on their podcast.
It's that deal where like everybody's afraid to ask the pretty girl to come go to the dance with them. It's like, well, it just some point it might work out for us.
Yeah, maybe if we cross paths, I don't
play
know.
our cards, right?
We'll see what
make them a
happens.
cake.
Well, dude, we appreciate it. I know you had some nasty storms come through on you this morning.
Man, it got crazy. Like literally, I'm not exaggerating. So it had tornado warnings, and it had winter storm for Georgia, which is usually 45 degrees and wind blowing and mist and rain.
Man.
But it rained. I bet you we got 7 inches of rain. And so anyway, my wife Christy, who both y'all know,
Yep.
she loves her farm animals and our dogs and our cats. So we've got 2 cats in the house, a chicken, and a squirrel, and 2 squirrel dogs in my home. So
you got to keep them out of the weather, man.
Storm so today. Thank God we didn't have any roping steers and camels, because they would have probably been in here too.
That's wild, man. Yeah, I mean, it seems crazy, but those January and February storms that blow through the South, man, they're nothing to mess with. That's for sure.
No, they get gnarly, dude. You remember it was a couple years ago. You remember that they come through Kentucky?
Oh, yeah.
Those tornadoes.
Yeah.
December, I think it was,
Yeah.
and man, it killed a lot of people. So I don't know, man. When I was all my kids were really young, I would tell them, when a tornado would come through, I'd say, listen, don't be afraid. This tornado is just as afraid of you if you are a bitch.
Well, dude, I'm a northern guy, right? So like we rarely get tornadoes up here. And
Right.
When I moved down to Mississippi State to go to school down there, we were driving around somewhere one day, and it was, storms were coming through, and the damn whistle went off. Well, shit, up here, that's a volunteer fire whistle. That's for people to come to the station because there's a fire. And I said something to who at the time wasn't my wife, but Emily, now my wife, and I was like, damn, that's weird. I was like, I've been here a year and haven't heard these fire whistles. She's like, that's a tornado siren.
Lord, I know it, man. It'll make the hair, raise on the back of your neck, and you have to take them serious.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Usually our tornado month is usually March and April, and but every year in Alabama and Georgia, and it seems like that right around here and right on the edge of Alabama where we live, has gotten really bad, man.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's almost like the apocalypse is coming, and you really can't do anything but just get in some type of protection and just pray. And so yeah, that's kind of what we did with last night. I texted y'all last night. It's like, man, I hope I have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We kind of live, a little bit out in the country, and so a lot of times utilities get knocked out pretty quick with some bad weather, and so. But luckily, we rocking and rolling.
There you go, man.
In Georgia, we hadn't been celebrating electricity long anyway. So.
Right.
You remember it was like 6 or 7 years ago, you and I hunted the early season in Kentucky when that one storm blew in.
Yeah.
Jared's on one ridge, I'm on the other ridge in tree stands, and you could hear this thing coming. I was like, dude, we might need to get. By the time I hit the base of my tree, I mean, I was like hanging on to that damn thing. It was a wicked storm.
It is, man, and you hear the people say it sounds like a train coming.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly
what it was.
Like.
Freight train.
Morning at 4:00 in the morning, my wife and I we got up because it was really bad. And we got a little storm shelter in our house. And so I got up there and went ahead and made a pot of coffee, and I was just chilling out. And it was kind of cool because it gave Christian time just to talk, and the power had went off. And so soon after, right when I got the coffee made, the power went off and stuff. And I'm like, we just sitting there and we chatting. And she said, well, I'm glad you're staying up. I said, well, listen, I said, my littlest boy was in there asleep. I said, well, at least if I hear something, I'd walk out on the porch, and if I hear that old train coming, we can get in this shelter. And then it hit me. I thought, you know what? The only time I've ever been afraid of really anything outside of the wrath of God is when I've been hunting, like in Adak Island, and you're in a tent. And even though I don't do a pile of high adventure, I look back on my career, man, I've done some pretty cool stuff. Been stuck in Alaska, been all over the Yukon, all over Africa, Zimbabwe. And the two most scariest things you'll have, the most uneasy feeling that I think a man, even an alpha man can have, is when you got inclement weather that you have no control over. You really are not prepared, and are just civil unrest that, you're in a country to where, there's people that'll rob you and or kill you. Like Jim Shock used to go to a lot of those crazy ends with, if it ends with a stand, there ain't nothing there I want to kill that bad, because they'll kill you. And so anyway, but that's a terrifying feeling. I've never been nervous around brown bears and any kind of animal, because I'm thinking, well, I'm here to shoot them. Maybe they'll come charging. I just got to shoot good. I don't know. It's like, maybe they'll make it easy on us and come into our camp. I don't care. Leave the Twinkies out. I've never been afraid of that. But bad weather, and civil unrest, man, will get you killed, buddy, on a hunt for sure.
It's wild. You think about, you mentioned Shockey, and even you guys taking the trip. I mean, a lot of these guys, Tom Miranda, like, you think with, obviously, you do as much preparation as you possibly can. You try to control what you can control factors, but, there's nothing that I can remember, at least in the last 20 years, that it's like, some of these people, besides, I guess, like Tim Wells, what was he in Africa when he fell out and his spear, caught him in a lake? But you almost think you'd hear more of that with these kind of wild type adventures.
I know it's crazy. And I think most of the time, if you talk to those guys that do it a lot, they will have some crazy stories. Maybe not to the element of obviously, not getting shot or stuff like that, but like Miranda, Shockey, and even some of the hunts that I've been on, you run into some very weird, uncomfortable situations. I remember I had all my money stolen out of my backpack while I was on my back, like $7,000, and I get to Zimbabwe, and I'm like, man, where's my money? And then Mugabe had shut down the internet, and then I was going over to Botswana to get some money over there. I think they call it bulas or pulas, because they had ATM and it was a little bit more westernized. And Zimbabwe was shut down, and we had like this, supposedly cop pull us over like in a Toyota Corolla with a machete and a 357, and basically was saw me, I'm the guy from Georgia, the white guy, so let's get some money out of him. Like, I don't have any money, and I didn't know the language, and I'm getting it's just such an unsettling feeling. Nothing happened, but it could have easily escalated into something. And I remember thinking, like, man, why ain't I home hunting turkeys? What's wrong with a whitetail? I don't like a Cape Buffalo that good. You can't even bring the meat home, man. It's like, I love it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't go, because I still, God, it was the most unbelievable trips. I've been there quite a few times, but that part of it to me is the most unsettling. It's not the Cape Buffalo hunt. It's just, you're in a different culture. You're not in America anymore. You don't have the right to speak up politically and talk about this or that. You have to just, you're there to hunt, and you take the adventure and you run with it. But a lot of poverty, a lot of people dying of different diseases. And, at the time it was AIDS, funeral tents everywhere. And so it's like it hits you like, oh my God, what's that old saying? We're not in Kansas anymore. Yeah. And so part of it to me, that's the part that's kind of a lot of people love, but I didn't like that part of it, because I felt like I had no control. And when you're hunting an animal, even with a bow and arrow, I just always felt like kind of I was in control to a degree, like, okay, it's between me and this animal. Even if it was a brown bear, whatever it is that could be dangerous, a Cape buffalo. And then obviously if you're hunting back home, you're hunting whitetails. Well, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's it's just a kind of a fun strategic luck type of game that's to me very laid back. And so I've always considered myself a little bit attention deficit. And so I get bored really quick with one particular thing, even species or way of hunting. I like to mix it up. So I don't know, but yeah, you're right. When I think of bad weather and civil unrest, I mean, you have to respect it because you can't necessarily control it. You can only prepare to the best of your ability.
Right. So, Michael, we talked there pre-podcast, and for people listening, I'm sure it's, you're not an unfamiliar name, but I do think that probably a lot of people maybe don't understand, well, where did Michael Waddell come from, right? I mean, we hear him, we know Michael Waddell, we know the bone collector, but, your start was, basically on the turkey calling side, right?
That is correct, man. It's just like I was in high school and actually met a guy named Dale Rom, who's up in y'all's neck of the woods, man. The Rom Brothers game calls.
Yep.
But Terry, Robbie, and of course Dale and Ann Rom, who treated me like a youngin'. And my mom had just passed away, and I was 16, and I just grew up in Georgia. So my dad and I think just kind of walk away from the hurt of losing his wife, my mom. We had foster kids at the time, so all the foster kids went home. I mean, we were real country. I mean, real country, like legitimately. I didn't even realize how podunk we were. I mean, yeah, I'd still get me a pair of Air Jordans every once in a while. I got some when I was in 6th grade. And I remember back then, my mom, before she'd passed, she paid $67 for them suckers. And she said, "Dad, what I pay for these shoes." And of course, now you can't get them for that. But anyway, I just, after mom passed away, man, me and my dad we hunted so much together there in rural Georgia, what we call Booger Bottom. Of course, y'all met my dad, and he become like a brother or a best friend. Still my dad, still whooped my butt. But to make ends meet, we all jumped in there, and I had an opportunity to still play football, baseball in high school and stuff like that. But hunting was just our number one getaway. That was our psychology. That was everything. Our life changed so much after mom died. And so I got really bored with whitetail hunting because at that time in the 80s, I would say the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of big deer. A lot of our herd in Georgia. Now, I can't guarantee this. This is what everybody said, that we traded some turkeys for Wisconsin deer or possibly Minnesota deer. So we had these big Valerius whitetail that were transplanted in certain areas in Georgia. And then we had a lot of Virginia deer. So a lot of the techie guys that might be listening, you think about the subspecies of deer, which is something to talk about because a lot of people get in these areas and they think they're going to kill a world record where, obviously, you're just not in the area that has that species. But anyway, I got bored with it because it got to where everybody was hunting and we were just, everybody was killing everything. And I did the same thing, man. Remington 30-06 and son, man, we were deer hunting. I mean, we were killing. If it had horns, we shot it. Spike,
right.
6-pointer. And to be honest, it was so much fun, man. We'd meet at my Uncle Morgan's and we would shoot and hunt. And that's when I was like 11 or 12. And then when I got 16, by the time I got 16 and mom had passed, me and my dad got hunting the most. I had so many, year and a half deer racks that I'd kill with that 30-06 and then I'm like, man, I sure would like to get a good buck, like a big deer. And I'd kill a couple nice bucks, with my gun. But
did you only hunt Georgia, Michael?
Yeah, at that time, yeah, I'd only hunted Georgia. And when I say we hunted, man, boy, did we hunt. I mean, it never stopped. We'd go from squirrel to rabbit to deer. And then when I was about 13, my Uncle Morgan told me, he said, "You ain't gonna believe what I saw in the back field back there by the corner stand." And I think we guessed everything from woolly mammoth to black panther. And he said, "No, I saw a wild turkey." And we're like, "Are you kidding me?" And like any solid blue collar redneck would say, he's like, "Well, can we shoot them too?" So I never knew anything about turkey, and I was about 13. And so my dad and I went and bought a Lynch foolproof box call. We found out that it was a season that come in March. That was like in November. He saw this turkey. It was during deer season.
That's funny.
Sure enough, we go back there, first day of what we had understood to be the Georgia turkey season, and dang, a turkey got to gobbling, and at that time I had an 0870 pump. My dad got to calling, and we killed this world record Jake. It was a Jake, but we killed that sucker.
Oh yeah.
And man, look, I really thought that me and Dad were probably the best turkey hunters on earth, because first time we went, in an area that didn't have a lot of turkeys, well, we killed one. And well, I fell in love with it, and I don't think I shot another turkey in about 2-3 years after that. And so I just started, was fascinated, and at that time, as far as my age, you had some games and some consoles, but I lived out in the country, so we only had a TV that had the antenna you could turn. So I had 3 or 4 channels, so there was a lot of time for boredom out there in the country. And so man, I just turned to turkey calling, and I started working and met Dale Rom, met Ricky Joe Bishop, who's a Grand National champion, people like Joe Drake, who's a Georgia caller, and they become my heroes, man. And I just kind of got under their wing and learned from them, and started calling. Back then, you couldn't really go online and buy any kind of rubber or latex. And so every filling station we went to, we would go into the men's room and buy as many condoms as you could. We never really bought like the packs of Trojans and stuff like that, like you'd see in the grocery store. It seemed like the ones off the back wall, because they was made a little cheaper and lighter latexes and stuff. And so literally the world championship, the first year I really called in the world championship, and I ended up getting 3rd place, which was a huge deal for me, being really young. Is I had built that turkey call out of a glow in the dark condom. It was cool, man. That was my yelping call. And but people like Matt Merritt, Chris Kirby, which is Dick Kirby's son. Yeah. Man, I don't know, dude. And I was really young. I was just there in high school and just out of high school. And obviously, there's a lot of great turkey callers that come from Georgia. A lot of names, recognizable names. And then I would say Missouri, Pennsylvania, and New York are probably the other ones, in Alabama. So those states kind of dominated the turkey call world. Yep. And I was really young, and so I had a chance to start guiding for Realtree early on. And so really, it's the only industry I've ever really known outside of working construction with my dad. I worked in a bunch of pro shops. I say a bunch. I worked at Big Buck Trading Post. I used to work up there in Manchester and help set up bows and be a bow ranch and just whatever. And so
what did that look like with Bill and Realtree, Michael? Like, I mean, you say you start guiding, because I mean, this is what, early to mid 90s at this point.
Yeah, that was early 90s.
So I mean, Realtree hadn't been around even that long at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't even think about it, because to me, when I met Bill Jordan and David Blanton, I felt like Realtree had been around forever. But in reality, I think what Bill's come out in 86, maybe
80s,
the first count. I would say really hit its stride in the early 90s. Yep. And so it was 92 or 3. Realtree had, back in the day, the biggest turkey calling contests were the Grand Nationals. You had the World Championship, and you had a thing called the U.S. Open. And Mossy Oak was the biggest sponsor for the World Championship. And the Grand Nationals, it was kind of a Mossy Oak and Realtree. So Realtree wanted to create what they called the Grand America, and they wanted to do this big prestigious turkey calling contest. So they created this Grand America. It was Realtree's Grand America. So the first annual, they had it, and the way they attract callers to come into it, they offered $1,000 for first prize, which was kind of unheard of. You only won that kind of money in the bigger contest, which just is going to be a big contest. So 60, 70 turkey callers showed up. They had preliminaries and everything, and they run it just like a world championship or a Grand Nationals. And well, anyway, lo and behold, I ended up winning it, and that's where I met Bill. So I won the first Realtree Grand America, and so Bill, like, man, congratulations, we've heard of you. And like, man, you heard of me? And he's, yeah, Joe Drake was telling us about you, and they had already was working with Ricky Joe Bishop and Joe, and so man, he's like, man, we'd love to send you some camo. And I'm like, oh, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, man. And so they sent me a box of camo. And ironically, and I'm not told the story much, about the same time, I get the coolest, nicest letter from Toxie Hayes and Cuz Strickland, and they sent me a box of Mossy Oak. They had got my contact from somebody, and so about the same time a box of Realtree came, a box of Mossy Oak had come, and so to me, man, I thought, like, this is the big time. Like, this is Hollywood. Like, it's, man, I done hit the big time. I got free camo at the time, Dale Rom, even though I was making a lot of calls out of those condoms, like I said, with Ricky Joe and stuff. I was getting turkey calls, and I was on a calling team. I mean, I really was just on top of the world, in my opinion, loving it. And so it was really cool. And so I remember when I got the 2 boxes of camo, I was like, oh my God, I realized that I was supposed to pick a side here. And they both at the time was offering me, it was a big deal to be on a hunting pro staff or like an advisory staff, they call it, similar to what in social media, you have these influencers, you'll put them on, pay influencers. Well, I guess that was kind of the deal, being that I was a turkey caller, wear this Realtree jacket or wear this camo jacket and go call. And that was representing a brand that people only saw you unless somebody videoed it or is televised on a local syndicate or something. TNN was the only thing out there, and they weren't showing that on TNN. And so that was your pro staff, your advisory staff, or your influencer. So they was inviting me on to be that. And so I got to looking, I was like, holy cow, man, Mississippi is quite a ways from me. And I got to looking, and Columbus, Georgia was like an hour from me. So I literally went back and talked to my dad, and I said, man, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, and both and even Cuz was like, hey man, we want to get you involved in some rider hunts and come over here and help us guide and use you. You seem like a fine young man, and that was very flattering to me, man. It never ever that kind of stuff ever even come close to this day. It still don't go to your head. It humbles you, or it should. If it don't humble you when you get a compliment from a mentor or a hero, then you probably are an asshole, I think.
Yeah, probably.
And it just humbled me up, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I literally talked with my dad, and he said, well, Mississippi, long ways away at Georgia, Columbus right up the road. And so I thought, well, maybe, and at the time, Realtree had Realtree Outdoors on TNN. So, and looking back, that was probably the most arrogance in me, is thinking, well, man, they got a TV show. I'm just this kid from Booker Bottom who had won a contest, some Georgia State stuff. And so anyway, I basically called Realtree and said, hey man, I'd love to join your team. And then I called Cuz and I told him, I said, Cuz, you want me to send this camo back? I said, man, I told him my story. He said, Michael, let me tell you something, buddy. I appreciate it. He said, you keep that camo, give it away, do what you want to with it. He said, I just hope you do well in this industry. I'll never forget those words. And Toxie had the same words. So to this day, I have so much respect for Toxie Hayes and Cuz Strickland. They always treated me like family, even though I technically was on that Realtree family. And of course, the Bill Jordan, David Blanton story goes without saying. They obviously did treat me like a kid. I was a kid.
Yeah.
And soon into it, I showed David Blanton some videos of me and my buddy Shane Collier at Big Buck Trading Post. We was out killing some nice bucks in Georgia and killing some turkeys with our bows in Georgia, which was hard to do at the time. And so literally I was probably in my early 20s, and I started getting a chance to guide a lot of rider hunts and stuff like that. And as I showed David Blanton that footage, he's like, dude, you need to start running a camera. I'll pay you $100 a day if you'll video. And I'm like, $100 a day, just go video some turkeys and stuff. And so I thought, shoot, I was like, I'm gonna get rich. Get rich doing this, And so I started doing it just on my off time, in between working with my dad and working heat and air. Just out of high school, next thing I know, David offered me a full-time job.
Wow.
And I tell it all the time, man. It was $18,000 a year. And David Blanton said, listen, we need you to guide. We need you to help build this brand. We need you to run a camera. I would like you to learn to edit. He said, I do not need any on-camera personalities. Bill Jordan's got that covered. We've got people like Jim Zumbo, Larry Weissoon. At the time, Realtree had all the, speaking of OG, they had them, man. They had them.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my mind, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I don't care to be on no TV anyway. I was trying to avoid being on that show Cops, running like hell,
That's
so
funny, man.
I was just, so anyway, just one thing led to another, started working there full time, and man, rest is kind of history. And I had a chance to see a lot in the industry, and it's been really cool, man. Really, really cool.
Well, you mentioned the respect that you had for Cuz and Toxie, Colin, and I would say that, man, it's probably mutual in that, not many people, especially in today's society, are like, let's say you have an option to pick. Like I was watching kids doing, college selections for football and stuff. And you think about, like, if you get 20 scholarships offers for football, there was one kid, he said, my dad made me call the other 19 schools to tell them thank you, but I decided to go. How many kids today are doing that? Not many, right? And so I'd assume, Toxie and Cuz probably had a lot of respect for you to call them and say, hey, listen, I really appreciate this, but I made the decision, I'm going to work with Bill and David over at Realtree.
Yes, I would think so. the way I was raised, I didn't think any different, and it's very similar to you guys, and y'all doing well, but y'all are molded that way. And so I look at that now, and I don't know, man. There was a couple $100 worth of camo in that box, and that was a big deal. I remember going one of the first shows I had, ended up. A lady named DJ Watkins called me, and a guy named Steve Lamboy, who was actually the CEO of Realtree, and they want to know, outside of turkey calling, would I come help? Would I come help work a buckarama, like the buckarama in Atlanta, Georgia? Yep. And stand in the booth and just help sell Monster Bucks videos, and I'm like, absolutely. It was like a July or August. I can't remember exact. It was a summer. And I never get this like yesterday. I drove up in my truck, and they told me, hey, we got you a room at, wherever, Holiday Inn or whatever. And I rode up, and they said, well, have you passes at your desk? And so I got I just felt like I was, like, this is like going to a Jay-Z concert behind the scenes, baby. It's like I got backstage passes. I go in the exhibitor door,
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. And so we go, and that night, there was probably 4 or 5 Realtree employees manning that booth. And a guy named, his name was Phil Hand. No, Steve Hanks was there, and a guy named Phil Hand. Anyway, I remember these names because I don't forget it. They said, hey, we're all going to go eat tonight at an Italian restaurant right down the road here in Atlanta. And I was like, okay, and so let's go. And I'm looking at the menu, and I'm looking, and the whole time I'm kind of like, oh my God, this is so expensive. This is way more than Applebee's, and definitely more than McDonald's. And nobody told me that my expenses were paid for, and so they were getting my dinner. And I remember looking through there, and I got like lasagna, which was a pretty fair, easy, cheap price deal. But anyway, they got all these appetizers. First time I'd ever had squid, that calamari. They had all this calamari out on the table, and what do you call that stuff? It's all these cheeses, but like I can't think of what it is, but like tomato and stuff.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I don't know, like bread with some tomatoes and stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, caprese, whatever. Yeah. And dude, I was just eating this stuff, and then all of a sudden my lasagna came. Like, oh my God, we've already eaten before we eat. I told the story a lot. That part of it, I'd never been where you get appetizers. Like you either went to Golden Corral and you eat all you can eat. But like I couldn't wait to get back and call my dad. And I said, Dad, you ain't gonna believe it. Man, these folks eat before you eat. And even more surprising, when the bill came, I was like, hey, I need my ticket too. And I remember Steve Hanks said, no, Michael, we got it. You worked the booth today. This is, Bill pays for our meal when we're on the road. And man, that bill, looking back, had to be $400 or $500, and we had all had, I think I'd had a beer. And like, I was just freaking out. Like, how am I going to afford this? And
that's wild.
Anyway, but I didn't know that part of society.
Yeah.
And looking back, the biggest blessing I had was I had some work ethic, and I wasn't entitled at all. I didn't feel like I was, and even more important, I couldn't believe, what they did? They gave me mileage on my truck for driving up there. Like I had a little jacked up Toyota 4-cylinder, and I made money going up there. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I still respect it. And I think that's what's missing. Everybody expects these things. And
sure.
I couldn't.
At some point, like when this starts to all come together, I would assume at some point you're like, man, this might be my job. Like I might be able to do this.
Yes, it was. As a matter of fact, it was so odd because I was such a fan of the hunting shows and the hunting industry and these personalities. We all have our time, like when you look at y'all's age demographic, mm-hmm. mine certainly was. I look back, Chuck Adams, Noel Feather. I was such a student of it, but I was also so blue collar. And I don't know if y'all have had this in y'all's life, but it was even worse probably in my time at that age, because nobody looked at hunting, at least in my family, as a way you can make a living. It was, or even working in it, they didn't realize there's a hunting industry. We should not have been naive to the fact, because we all hunted. We bought coveralls.
Right.
We bought insulated boots at Kmart, and we had 30-06s and,
mm-hmm.
core bullets. We had all these things. So obviously there's got to be an industry, but in our mind, if you're going to make a living, well, you got to be an electrician. You got to build a house. You got to drive a truck. You got to teach schools. You got to sell insurance, get you a good job. get you a company car, get you a company van, get you to outfits, got your name on it, benefits, 401k.
Yeah.
That thought you had made it, where I was from, if you got those things. And so when I did the hunting thing, man, there was almost an intervention. And when I realized I was going full time, and even into that, I remember going home and sitting with my Uncle Tommy and my grandmama. And at the time I was working at Barringer's Heating and Cooling and working at a pro shop on the side. They were so proud that I had my own van and I was doing heating and air work, making minimum wage, and in their mind that I had made it. Their grandson or the nephew had made it. And when I told them I was starting to do that stuff at Realtree, and I was, not going to be working at Barringer's Heating and Cooling, they was going to pay me to run a camera. It was almost like I got on crack and was saying I was going to Hollywood to be a model. It's the same far-fetched type of deal. And I remember they kind of pulled me in the living room after dinner one night and they said, Michael, now listen, you can't make no living hunting and fishing. You're young, and if you want to get some inside your system, but you had a lot going for yourself. Don't screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think. And luckily, my dad was like, my dad is a hard worker, and he is tough when it comes to work. He's a nice guy. He loved me, and he's respected me, and he's always gave me everything that he thought that he didn't have when he was a kid. But you was going to get up and go to work. You was going to get up on a Saturday morning after football game. We still going to cut wood. You going to do your chores. The roof over this house don't come free, and you're a part of making sure things, around here, that things are kept up and chores. And so he's like, well, Michael, I don't care what you do. He said, you young enough. He said, but you ain't gonna stay here, whatever you do. He said, you got to get out your own and pay your own way and make things happen. He said, but he said, this hunting industry thing, he said, luckily my dad was a diehard. He's like, man, that's pretty cool. You mixing and mingling with some really fun, cool people. He said, enjoy it for a little while and you got time to get back to reality. So even he thought that it was a little far-fetched, but he was more like, I think my dad was almost like our college years. I never went to college. I was just right into this. So it's almost like our parents send us off to wherever we go. Like, yeah, go drink you a few beers, get you an education, get in a sorority or frat house, whatever, and have fun, try some things, and I'll give you 3 or 4 years. But hey, after that, you're off the tit. And I think this Realtree thing was my dad like, okay, just before I kick you off the tit, for sure, go out and get your feel of it. You got your heating and air degree. You can find you a job. I've taught you how to frame a house. I've taught you how to work and split wood. So I think that's what it was. But yes, that is when I thought, I said, wait a minute, there's an industry. And I remember seeing the money. Bill Jordan had a Mercedes Benz. I'm like, this dude ain't broke.
Yeah.
He ain't broke. Matter of fact, Bill, real quick side story on that Mercedes Benz. One of the first times I went up to Realtree on Box Circle, Bill loves this story because it's so funny. He had just bought this brand new Mercedes Benz, and it was one of those big, long charcoal gray, had his windows tinted in there. And we was getting ready to go to a hunting show, like I think it was a Buckmasters Expo.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Michael, take my Mercedes up there to Goo Goo Car Wash and get it washed and waxed for me. I said, yes, sir. I said, give me the keys. I jumped in there and crunk that sucker up. And so, as you know, when you pull around to those old car washes, they would always have an attendant. Now everything's kind of automated. There used to be an attendant, like a little board, like, what kind of wash you want? Super wash, max wash, the ultimate wash. And so I look, and there was this real pretty little girl standing out there. And I'm like, okay, I'm rolling. I come in there, old big country, come wheeling that ladies, and I get up there. And as I get up there to kind of throw some game at this little chick in this Mercedes that I could pretend was mine or whatever she wanted to think, I couldn't even figure out how to get the window roll down in the damn.
You're like, where's the wheel?
So I had to open the door like ultimate wash. And she's like, oh, so yours. I said, I just got it.
Don't even know how to work this thing yet.
How to roll the window down. It was on the console, over by the middle. And back then, all electric.
Yeah, it was all right there. Man, it is.
Yeah, that was it, guys. I think that's when I realized, like, man, there's an industry and I can make a living. I didn't know how much money I can make, but I was raised like most that, if you're doing what you love, that ain't really work, and you got to work. And so I saw it as a cool opportunity. Looking back, I thought it would run its course.
Sure.
And with the salary I was making, I wasn't making a bunch of money, but man, the adventure and the experience and the people I got to be around, the knowledge I got to obtain, I never looked at the industry as something or these people as something I could try to get a bunch from other than just the knowledge. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was a privilege to sit and talk to Jim Zumbo and to pick his brain. I felt like it was an absolute blessing to spend camp with Larry Weissoon, to be around Jackie Bushman, to be in
Yeah.
camp with Bill Jordan, to talk to people and be mentored by David Blanton. I mean, even David Morris and Miles Keller, Chuck Adams. I mean, those were legendary, successful people, and
Mm-hmm.
none of them were broke. They were all they all had families. And so I remember early on, I was thinking, okay, fix
Yeah.
air conditioning, frame houses, or be like David Blanton. You know,
Mm.
somebody's got to be a David Blanton. And that's what I tell young people today. I was like, hey, somebody's got to be Prince. Somebody's got to be Bruno Mars. Somebody's got to be, you know, the next Michael Jordan. So there is opportunity out there. If you're not entitled and you work hard and you dedicate yourself and you believe you can do it and you say you can, write it down, keep believing it. I believe that you can achieve anything, especially if you find your right skill set. And in my case, I really did even gain more confidence. And I don't know if you guys had this experience when I started hunting around some of these people that I did admire and love, you know, a little conceited and cocky here, but I felt like, oh my God, I think I'm a better hunter.
Yeah.
I think I take this bow and kill something. I've videoed a lot of people, you know, missing animals and wounding them. And I'm like, dang, man, I would have killed that deer, you know, and, you know, I felt that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, God, if I could here, if I could just, man, if I had my shotgun, I could hunt turkeys here, man, I would run a rake through them, boy. You know, how close you want them, Bill, you know, and so that kind of juvenile, humble cockiness is why Bill and David's like, well, go do it.
Yeah.
Come on, get the camera guy, y'all go kill one. We're going to sit around the pool right here at Encinitas. Like, and then, you know, I'd walk out and David'd be like, hey, don't take that shotgun, kill one with the bow. Well, I'd come back like a little old squirrel dog. Like, I got one. I killed one. Here's your one with a bow. And I'd throw it in there on the deck, you know, and they would laugh and cut up, and old redneck, old booger bottom Michael. And so, but they treated me good, man. And they treated me like they loved me. And obviously that was sincere. I loved them back, and it led to everything. It led to a lot of opportunity, but they was also hard on me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you know, when I went on my own, you can't just go do this, you know, and still work here. You got to go do it, get after it. And so, it's amazing. I could talk for 3 hours on it because it's truly the American dream. But
It's weird,
but
man.
yeah,
When you talk about that industry side, you know, obviously, like today, you know, when people think about hunting industry, I mean, it's just so visible, right? You can just see all the brands, you see all the influencers, you see everything. When you think about those 90s and even into the early 2000s, like it just seemed very much like behind the hidden veil, essentially. Like to your point, we were buying overalls, we were buying Realtree, we were buying Mossy Oak, we were buying Remington shotguns, we were, you know, whatever. We were buying gear for some reason. Somebody influenced us to buy certain gear that was out there, but it just didn't seem as front forward. Besides, like you said, TNN. I mean, you had, you know, Realtree Outdoors, you had Buckmasters, you had Hunt in the Country. Like those were the three shows that you watched on TNN on Sunday nights in the fall.
that's correct. I think what you're saying, and we don't have that. Less is more, and back then we had less, but it equaled more. And I think now we have so much more that it's lessened things. Now with that makes it to where our industry don't have any excuse. Nobody can say, well, that's a farm deer and I do public, or I do farm deer and you do public, or I'm a this and I'm a that. Well, we all have an opportunity to share what our talents are, our assets, and our creativity is. And then inevitably, you know, you got a consumer that can decide your legitimacy. Not you. We don't get to decide if we're handsome or hot or good or bad. It's a consumer. And so the fact that if you want to get into some psychology, perception is reality. Well, reality is reality, but the perception is the reality. If people perceive you as something, then that's it and that's all. And so everybody's gonna have an opinion on you. And so inevitably, sometimes we have control of that, sometimes we don't. And so the only thing I've always tried to say when it comes to hunting, and the epitome, I feel like where I had success as a personality, is I went into it very insecure, because in those days, you have TNN. If I knew I was going to be on an episode of Realtree Outdoors on TNN and I was going to get to hunt the Encinitas Ranch, Man, it was almost like just somebody out of the blue going to host the Grammys. It's like, hey, host the Grammys, and just tell a few jokes and, get Beyonce up here to sing a song and, see who wins the best actress of the year. And, if you don't mind, just host it for us. Well, that's what it felt like to me. Yeah. So I was so nervous. I caught myself, rather than knowing I had a Southern accent, I caught myself trying to really clean up my act. If I hunted in a little battered, worn out shirt, I caught myself putting a new shirt on, tucking it in. It was almost like going to church because you had to represent, not just for Realtree, but you had to represent this culture and you had to represent it pristine. You didn't shoot a deer and just freak out and like, go dude, I smoked his ass. He's over here. He bought a parking ticket. Well, soon I evolved into that because that's who I was.
Right.
But in those early days, I started realizing that we weren't showing our true emotion out of insecurity. And so for me, when I felt like I hit my stride was when I said, wait a minute. At this point, I had been to Pennsylvania. I'd been to Michigan, where more hunting licenses are sold per capita than anywhere. I'd been all over Texas. I'd been all over, my neighboring state of Alabama and chased turkeys. So I had a pretty good pulse that I was just really no different than my Northeastern buddies. Mm-hmm. That was no different. And we didn't, Georgia nor Northeast had a lot of big deer, but we run up and down those hills and hollows and stomp through whatever swamp just to kill a deer and chase our own does and scrapes around the little small towns and Dairy Queen. And we talked a certain way. We said things maybe with a different accent, but we celebrated the same way. We was pumped when we killed a turkey. We was excited when we sent an arrow through a broadside deer. And so I finally just like, man, I'm going to be me. Cause what happened to me, I remember I was on a Realtree Outdoors episode of TNN and I had some of my buddies back home from Manchester saw me and they said, God dang, man, we didn't recognize you. Wasn't even talking like yourself. You was talking like old city slicker. And I'm like, what? Really? They said, yeah, man, well, you were being Mr. Hunting Pro. And man, that bothered me.
Yeah.
And I can looked at that episode and I'm like, man, they're right. That ain't all the emotions that I had were in there, but I was scared to let them out because I didn't want to be that redneck. I didn't want to be that goofball buddy of mine from the Northeast that god dang yelled like Tarzan after he killed a doe. Y'all got him, you know what I'm saying? And so
right.
And it hit me. I was like, oh, that's what it's about. And so I finally, that's when I started like just, man, I don't know, just having fun, just having fun. And when I did that, and then I got more opportunity on camera, I think that's when things started taking off. But I wasn't angled up. It wasn't like I was. I was unlike. Like I've heard some of the episodes y'all did with some other personalities. I never had a goal of being a hunting personality. Mm-hmm. Never ever. It was not in my wildest dreams. It wasn't something I desired. It wasn't like one day. No, I was like, man, I got to make a living. I got to make some cheddar. I got to pay my power bill, and I sure would like one of them new Hoyt bows too. And I would like to kill something. What do I need to do? Do I need to cut firewood, clean out septic tanks, fix air conditioners, or video Bill Jordan kill a turkey? I don't care. That's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be around fun people and good campfires. And that was really it. And so by evolution or happenstance or good Lord's grace is how I got a chance to do more on camera. And I think I got that opportunity, Jared, from starting with that turkey call. If I hadn't won those championships, I think I wouldn't have had the same opportunity, because what happened around the Realtree office, even though David had said, don't do this and you're not going to be on camera, all of a sudden we was on Realtree Outdoors and it'd be a turkey calling tip. Like, oh man, Hunter Specialties wants a turkey calling tip on this or this. And they're like, well, Joe Drake's out of town or he's working at the fire station. And David Blant be like, well, I ain't that good on a mouth call. Well, Michael, why don't you go do it? You're champion. Can you take his call and go yelp and talk about what a yelp is and assembly yelp? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And so that evolved to me getting an opportunity. And the fact that, not making a pile of money, I would say my bonuses were a chance to stay over, after Christmas break and hunt the Encinitas Ranch.
Right.
Or maybe get a chance to say, hey, there's a new place out in Idaho. Why don't you go check that out and see if it's good? And if it's good, maybe we'll come back there next year. So they would call the guy and I'd get to be like the staff reporter, and they'd send me with some new camera guy that maybe they was trying to find out if he was any good. Like, take old Bubba out there and see if he can video, and if he's good, maybe we'll stick him on the circuit next year as a freelancer. And so I would kind of get to be the guinea pig, which was, you talking about how fun that was? I mean, just, and sometimes I'd kill something. Sometimes I'd come back like, man, I don't know. That's kind of a shady deal. I don't think we need to bring the boss man up there. We don't need Bill Jordan up there. So anyway, it's amazing. But I don't know. I just had so much respect for these people. I was such a student of the game, and really not to transition on into that. I feel like now sometimes I don't know that sometimes people have the respect that they should. I respect everybody, even the people that have failed. Now, I'm pretty bold when somebody disrespects me and keeps disrespecting really my crew or my family. Then I will find them at the ATA. I will try to walk and, like, I ain't gonna put it on a comment. I want to see you in the whites of the eyes and talk to you about it. I'm not saying I'm gonna come up and knock you out. Ain't like I want to fight, but hey, man, here I am. Say it to my face. Why are you so aggravated at me? Why are you mad about my success? And that's what I found through the process, as I'm sure in y'all's stride now. I've learned the most valuable lesson in life is not finding friends in your pitfall. A lot of people think you find your friends in the most tragic times. You can find a lot of people in tragedy because people are drawn to the train wreck.
Yeah.
Where you find your right friends is when you start making money, when you start killing big bucks, when you start getting leases secured that your friend always wanted, when your friends or so-called friends will say, hey, y'all more fancy than us. Y'all over there talking to this guy and that guy on your podcast, and y'all making them big dollars. Hey, must be nice to know much about computers and internet that y'all can help old Wadell over at Bone Collector. We can't afford. Well, to me, that's them. That ain't anything to do with you. It's not you that's changed. It's just they that has stayed the same. And so I learned that the hard way, and I went through a lot of emotional stress trying to figure out why some of my friends or even people in the industry, when road trips took off and it was success, it's almost like, yeah, well, Waddell used to do this and that. Well, Waddell never left. I was always there. It's just y'all didn't want me there because y'all was pissed off that I had success. Y'all was pissed off that there was maybe a line of people. I didn't ask for that line of people. I didn't ask to even be in a position. I was just trying to do the best I could. So I never sought after being, if you want to call it a personality or a celebrity or a pro hunter. As a matter of fact, in every contract I got, if you read, you cannot call me a pro hunter. I don't believe in, who's a pro hunter? Is that me saying that I'm a better hunter than you or the guy that buys my product or Hoyt? Does that mean I'm better than Jeremy and Jared? I'm not. We all got our lanes. We're all good. You legitimately can see what we're good at if you video our stuff. And so I don't know, man. I just think a lot of things are shallow. And I think not giving a shit sometimes helped me and learning how to walk away from certain people who wants to rain on your parade. And for me, it's one reason that I'm very proud to be on say this podcast, because I feel like y'all got a lot of great things happening. It doesn't mean it's going to be greater because I'm on it, but it means I want to be part of celebrating what y'all are doing and celebrating the industry and having real talk. I want to be part of people's agenda, whether it's the hunting public or Seek One. Those guys do really cool things. They're different than what I've done. They're different than Shockey did. They're different than what Lee and Tiffany did. But I'm proud that they took a lane. I want them to succeed. I love that. I'm not pissed off a bit about it. I'm secure in that. I want to go. If they're having a party and celebrate, I want to celebrate with them. If I've got a friend that calls me tomorrow and says, hey, you ain't gonna believe it, I just scratched off a ticket and won $1 million. I'm like, hey, buddy, let me go buy you a cold beer and we're gonna go celebrate this. I'm happy. Like, dude, you've been broke your whole life, bro. Let's go buy a bass boat. So the people ain't that way a lot of times, and that shocked me. I don't know why that is, but
there's a lot of that. No, there's a lot of that. It's rooted in jealousy and insecurity, like you said. Do we even see that? It's like, people that I don't know if they stumble on our podcast for the first time, or they just catch part of our conversation, or just even see a 60-second clip on TikTok or whatever, and they're like, we see the same thing. Maybe not to the level that you do, but it's must be nice, to hunt for a living and this and that. It's like it couldn't be further from the truth. It says right. Jeremy and I are out here, busting our butts, running multiple businesses, and like we've got issues just like anybody else, and I'm sure you do too. And it sucks to see that. I think there's a lot of merit going back to what you said before about less is more, and like I think everything you've said about the hunting industry and your experience up until this point is like for me, And I was born, Michael, in the early 90s, right? So like, when you were coming up and really getting into it, I mean, the industry was really kind of taking off, and you had the Realtree and the Mossy Oak, and it's like, everybody was rallying to the outdoor channel. And like, it was a select few, like the way that it was set up, like the very nature of the hunting industry and the outdoor channel and the personalities that were a part of it. And also on the information side of it, you talk about like, it was almost like, the trade secrets, and I was like, man, this is how I would call a turkey. Here's, different techniques like fanning. And it's like, man, there were really guys that had an edge, like, had a certain look. And it's like, dude, I mean, for me, especially in the past 10 years, and I mean, Jeremy, you're probably in this boat too. It's just like, it's kind of bittersweet. It's almost like, man, that's, almost gone away. Like, we have everything at our fingertips. It's like anybody can make a YouTube channel, including us, right? Like, who are we? Nobody's monitoring our stuff.
There's no quality control.
Nobody set a certain level of production, and then here you go. You can have a TV show, and it's like, as far as information, it's like, what could you possibly want to know that isn't right there? I could just jump on, and there's hours and hours and tools and apps and literally anything that you could possibly want to know or do as far as hunting and stuff. It's right there. And it's almost like I feel I'm jealous of your experience, in those early 90s and the 2000s, because it's like, man, it just so many of those rocks have been turned over now that it's just kind of like, it's to the point where this is so easy for us. The fact that Jeremy and I are gaining some traction with this podcast, and that it's like people are attracted to it, is like, it's cool and it's fun, but it's almost sad, because it's all we're doing is speaking truth. We're just being honest about our experience. And it's like the fact that that's rare, and people are like, oh wow, that's awesome, I want to cling to that. It's like, dude, why isn't everybody doing that? There's no secret sauce. Just like just be honest and talk about how you feel. And they're like, I've never thought of that. Yeah.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy and Stealth Cam trail cameras.
Cell cams. What an evolution the industry has seen, and we've experienced personally over the past 5, 10, whenever cameras were invented, right? It's like, man, it's totally changed the way that we inventory deer, pattern deer, and ultimately the decisions that we make when we're going out to hunt. They're a serious piece of the puzzle, and that information is invaluable for us. We trust the Muddy and Stealth Cams, together to be able to collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, as an admitted trail cam addict, I've definitely been guilty of under hunting places or relying too heavily on that information that's come in. That said, it's an invaluable tool to the overall management plan and strategy that I have for my own properties, or even hunting public land. It doesn't matter. We have a finite amount of time in going out and hunting. So when you and I are after a particular class or quality of deer, usually a mature buck, we can't waste time hunting an area where that deer doesn't exist. And those cell cams provide that information that allow us to spend the time in the area with the highest chance to accomplish our goals.
Say it all the time, man. They can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
So right now, any of our listeners can use code HUNTR20 to get 20% off either Muddy or Stealth cameras. We're certainly going to be taking advantage of that, and we hope you guys do too.
Yep, check out Stealth Cam and Muddy.
It is so true. And a lot of people try to figure out how do you write success? And when it comes to legitimacy in a space, I can use y'all as an example. Like I said, I think Jeremy mentioned, for the last 8-9 years, we've had a chance to know each other, and work professionally with the service that Jeremy had started. And even Katie, who's up there, who I've known forever, love Katie Wilberdine. She is
She's
queen
a beast.
and badass, man.
She is the queen. Yeah.
I love her. She's one of the sharpest ladies that we've ever had in our space, that a lot of people don't even know unless you work in the industry and work back in the Maristep days. And I think she worked with the Kiefers and a lot of different people, but she's A-team. So anyway, Katie, that's my throw you a little love right there, because you deserve it. But then from the standpoint of that, quick, y'all come to our farm and there's just an element of legitimacy that, it doesn't mean that, oh man, this guy's Chuck Adams. It means there's a legitimacy that know the passion and the pulse of these two guys, Jeremy and Jared, that they love to hunt. And I think you can see that in me or Nick or T-Bone when it comes to archery and hunting. And so anyway, that legitimacy you can't fake.
Yeah.
But what I've learned overall, like y'all talking about, speaking about subjects maybe that other people don't want to go around, because what happens is they have an opinion on it, but they're afraid of their opinion because they're trying to fit in any lane they can. And you can't gain any type of traction trying to be loved. You only get loved by being truly who you are, and you either are or you're not legitimate and potentially likable. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody might like you or everybody might dislike you. But what happens is there's a lot of facades, there's a lot of fakeness. And so from our standpoint, and I think what you're saying about what y'all are doing, like us, love us, hate us, at least you're going to know it at face value. This is who we are and how we feel. And this is how we feel about things. Our guests might feel different.
Yeah.
Michael might feel different on the subject than I do. Or the guy that's working at the feed store construction site that comes on the podcast, he might have a different view on baiting and crossbows than we do, or vice versa. But that's the beauty of it. That is the cooler talk. That is the hanging out at the sporting goods store and hearing, people almost yelling and fighting. But at the end of the day, all right, well, we're going to BFW saying karaoke night if y'all win. It's almost like you're still in the same.
You are. Well, absolutely.
The passion can't be denied. The passion.
Be honest with yourself. And then when you screw up, just admit your mistakes. Dude, I've screwed up so much. And I learn more from my screw ups than I do on my successes. And so when you screw up personally or professionally, all you got to do is say, hey, that was me. That was my bad. I want to learn from that. That was dumb. What was I thinking? Or a bad shot, or just anything. And like you said, you get a lot thrown at you. A lot of things. You have business opportunities you think are going to be unbelievable, and you get screwed. You have, everything under the sun, everything the devil has to offer. You're going to get it if you start being successful.
Yeah.
The more success, the more the devil's going to be at you, and he's going to put some stuff in your face that you'll say, I'd never do that. But then you're sitting there looking at it right there and like, well, that's pretty. That looks tasty. And so it changes everything. So anyway, just be yourself. Be real to yourself. And if you truly are not that person you're trying to portray, step out. Get out. It'd be like me. Can you imagine me being in California like, dude, this is so rad, man. Everybody's real sus, dude. We're going to freaking get on these skateboards and rip it up, dude. I mean, I can talk the bullshit. I can try. But, dude, at the end of the day, I can't ride a skateboard. I like motocross, but I can't go start talking about, dude, a little tight in the corner is going to freaking whip it over the freaking double. Because I would be lying. I'd be portraying something I ain't. So, therefore, my insecurity would reach. I don't have to do that when it comes to turkey or deer or elk or hunting around the country. It's like, man, I've been there. This is my game. I love it. I study it.
Yeah.
I read about it. I talk to the OGs about it. I've been in it. I've got them animals dead in my house and in my farm. I got them in sporting goods stores that I've let people take the taxidermy. I love it. So there's security. So I think that's what happens. I think we're just reeking of insecurity at some time in the world of more. In the world of more, it's like, well, you know what? There's, I could do this and maybe I could be that person. Well, the question you have to ask, are you that person?
Yeah.
If you're that person, you might be that person. But if you're not that person, you'll never be it. So,
well, Michael, I think that's probably, let's be honest. I don't know if there's been a bigger brand in the outdoor industry than Bone Collector. If you look at what it's done, not just from a show standpoint, from a brand standpoint, where this logo, where this thing, dude, how many people are getting tattoos of a brand on their body? Like that to me is like the ultimate setup of like, is this a serious brand? Well, it's tattooed on a lot of people's bodies across this country right now. But if you think about that, I would say that Bone Collector, what you and Nick and T-Bone did, separated itself from everyone else when you guys were yourself. I don't think you did, and no disrespect, I don't think you did anything that different than what other people were doing, but you guys were relatable because it's like, oh, he is just this redneck from the South. Like, he's just like me. He's a blue-collar guy. Like, he just loves to hunt, where some of these other people, I think, maybe loved hunting, but they really were trying to be the pro hunter, the celebrity hunter type-esque. And, man, the public can tell, right? They see that from a mile away anymore.
You can tell it. It's almost like the Kaepernick story.
That's
at the end, did he really want to be a quarterback, or did he want to be an activist?
Exactly.
Do you really want to be a hunter? Do you really want to run a camera or grind it? Get in here with the Stone Road guys, the Bone Collector crew, and help hang stands and figure out where to go next, or do you really just want to be a celebrity and sign a hat? And I think that's it. I think people see through that. I was very insecure when people asked me or would stand to meet me. I was it's the most awkward situation that a man a humble man will ever experience, is to have somebody standing, especially a line of people that wants you to sign their hat, and take a picture with their kid. And at first, I remember thinking, man, I you don't need my autograph. And I thought about it, that's a bigger disrespect to him, because most men, it's awkward for another man to want another man's autograph.
Yeah, to ask for it. Mm-hmm.
Dale Earnhardt, and I mean, finally, I'm out there turkey hunting with Dale Earnhardt, and we're talking regular, like everything. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of the hunt, turkey gobbles, and I'm like, "Hey Dale, would you mind signing my hat?" He's like, "Damn it, redneck!" He said, "Let us get off this turkey hunt." But it almost like I was so scared to ask him. I felt like it was, and then it kind of hurt my feelings when he said that, But I had to get it out. And so anyway, now I'm just very humbled, and but I think you're exactly right, Jerry. I was exactly right in that it's the easiest thing, but it's also the hardest thing, because I think a lot of people aren't true to themselves or their desires. They'll tell you one thing that they want to accomplish, and matter of fact, I've got to where, for me, I'm quicker to want to do business or be around somebody that will be honestly tell me his dreams and aspirations. Now, here's the thing. There's a fine line. I don't believe your dreams and aspirations should be broadcast all the time, because I think you got to internalize some things in today's world, especially social media. Your life, some of the things with your kids, your food. You don't have to show everybody your damn food. Nobody cares. You just eat your meal and go on about it. And if somebody asks, like, "God dang, I had some good hamburger steak today," let it be. You don't have to. Nobody wants to know all that about you. However, when I'm sitting down with somebody and we got Bone Collector, and then they got that, I never forget, Nick Munt told me, now Nick was the exact opposite. Nick loved hunting. He wanted to hunt on TV. Think about the last person that has walked in Stone Road or anywhere in the world that would come in like, "Hey man, what are you good at?" Most people say, "Man, I'll do anything. I'll do this. I'll do that. And man, all I want to do is be on the team." No, Nick Munt just told straight up, like, "Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. I want to freaking hunt on TV. I want to kill shit." And I'm like, "What?" Then at first I was like a little offended. Like, you don't want to run a camera. You don't want to guide no more. You was an outfit. You was working for an outfit. Nope. I want to be a hunting celebrity and kill deer. And I think I'm funny. I think I'm a good hunter. And this is what I want to do. And then later,
like
I freaking love his honesty. Nobody's ever come at me that way, And guess what? He's like, "Dude, I would love to make $25,000 to $30,000 a year and kill stuff." Well, think about that. There's a lot of people listening like, okay, kill as much stuff as Nick Munt, make $25,000, $30,000 a year. That's a pretty good gig. You're making a lot of money. You don't have to pay for nothing else. Your gig is paid for. You're on the stadium. And so I learned to appreciate that. And so it's hard to get somebody where they want to be.
Right.
Where they're wanting to make $1 million, where they don't want to kill a 170.
Yeah.
And if you're a friend or teammate, I think you got to share your goals in private. To say, "Hey man, this is something I want to accomplish. Can y'all help me?" And y'all say, "Well, here's something we want to accomplish, Wadell. Let's do that." It's like, and then you can start working. And some of those things and goals might offend each other. Could, like, "Oh, God, that's awkward," but it's not awkward, because you're living on it. You're striving for it. And I think that's what support groups do. And the right teams do. They elevate themselves to get to the top of the heap. And so
did you know that you wanted to build like a Bone Collector team, like coming out of Realtree road trips and stuff? I mean, was it a mindset of like, I need other people with me out in front of this thing?
Yeah, my story was unique when it comes to success. I mean, if I were to change gears and talk about that side of, let's talk about after road trips. When road trips came about, it was completely by accident as well. And I was working, and David Blanton was my boss. He was executive producer. And so I started kind of realizing real quick, as I was around these campfires with celebrities, as well as, hunting personalities from the Jim Zumbos, the Larry Weishuhns. Man, you talking about some really fun dudes. Those guys were so fun to sit around a campfire with and hear their adventures, talk about family, and to laugh, talk about what they knew about hunting. It was kind of the podcast before the podcast, and sitting around, and I was mesmerized at just how funny, how real, how alpha most all these men were. But then all of a sudden the camera comes on and they become a whole different person. And I'm like, man, that is kind of awkward in my mind. I'm supposed to be a producer, but I'm thinking, wait a minute. It's almost like, dude, just sing it this way. Don't be that. Be this. The guy that's around the campfire, you're already loved. If you would be this guy, you would sure enough be loved. So anyway, I remember me and a guy named Steve Finch pitched David Blanton the idea of this Realtree road trips, because not just these personalities and celebrities, also the people, if you're going through Scranton, Pennsylvania, you're running characters. If you're in Bernie, Texas, you run into some characters. You're in hunting camp, a camp cook. And so I was like, man, this story needs to be told. This is why we all hunt. And this is the people and the adventures. And that's the ones you keep coming back and talking about. You're not even talking about what you kill. You're like, you ain't gonna believe this dude we run into at the airport in Alaska.
Yeah, right.
And so anyway, we had an idea of documenting that stuff and video and kind of more behind the scenes and bringing out the realism. And so, but we didn't pitch it as like, hey man, I'll host it. But we told David Blanton about it. And he said, dude, let's do it. And at the time it was TNN but TNN become, it become Spike TV. Yep. TNN went away. And then we moved to ESPN, or Realtree Outdoors, and Mossy Oak did. They all moved to ESPN. And at that time, we didn't even we tried to produce our shows, but inevitably ESPN produced them. So you couldn't show Impact. It was even starchier than the starch of TNN. And so Outdoor Channel had just come on. And so David Blanton's like, look, let's get some airtime and let's do that show that you and Finch are talking about. Let's do it on Outdoor Channel, but you host it, Wadell. And I'm like, oh, David, I didn't come here pitching this thing that I host it. And he's like, no, dude, you're the perfect personality. He said, I don't have a big budget. I can do everything from gigging frogs to, hunting deer in Georgia, Alabama. And, I think I can secure maybe an elk hunt or something, or maybe a place in Kansas. Y'all go try to hunt a deer. And so that's what we did. And I got a chance to be part of that. So through that success, when that did air, it was successful. That was 2002 and 3. And that show got pretty successful. And with that come a lot of temptation and opportunity. And so the biggest situation that was kind of odd was the financial opportunities that was coming. Like, I'd have a different company say, hey man, if you can come help us work a Cabela store, we'll give you 10 grand. Are you grand's a big check. That's still a lot of money to me. And, like, are you serious? Just come work Saturday? Like, just hang out and say hey to people? Like, yeah, we'll give you 10 grand. So I would go to Realtree and say, man, you can't technically do that by our policies and parameters.
As an employee of Realtree.
Yes, and being a full-time employee of Realtree. And then, then I had hunting shows where there's Harrisburg or whatever, like, Wadell, could you come do us some seminars? We'll pay you. And so it got to where Realtree said, hey, you can do 2 or 3 of those a year. We'll allow you to get paid by that. But, they were trying to not let me get sidetracked.
Sure.
And never did I have any aggravation. But then at the same time, Realtree would have a deal with a boot company, and Realtree would fly me around the country. And I was just whatever you needed from me. If Cabela's needed, I was there. Bass Pro needed me, I was there. If Mark's Outdoors in Alabama needed me, I was there. Yeah. And everybody else is at home on the weekends, and I'm coming back, and I'm like, so finally, man, I'm getting burnt out. I go through, divorce. I don't know my kid hardly. I had a little young boy, and I'm like, man, this whole fame and fortune ain't that fun, because I got the fame, but I ain't got no damn fortune.
Right.
And all I a bunch of dead animals. And even then I'd kill more stuff, than Jimmy Dean, man. I'd killed a lot of stuff. And I'm like, man, I don't know if it's worth it. And then I thought, my God, what a blessing and a curse. And so I was at a point personally and professionally that I was on top of the world, but I also felt pathetic with myself. I didn't even like myself. And I know that sounds crazy. It sounds like one of these stupid, little pity party Hollywood stories, but I remember when it hit me in the face. I never forget, it was, I went to Las Vegas, Nevada, and we was doing a deal with Under Armour at the time. Under Armour didn't have any outer garments. They just had the under stuff. And they was a dead gum banner of me over one of these hotels. I mean, this sucker must have covered 10 stories, it looked like. And it was me in this Under Armour shirt, and I'm standing like on top of this mountain. And man, I hated it. I felt so little and pathetic, because it hit me that here it was, Mason at the time was getting ready to play baseball, couldn't even make it to tryouts.
Mm-hmm.
He had played Little League football the year before. I hadn't been to maybe 2 games. And I was just like, man, I ain't got no money from this. I got some Under Armour shirts.
Yeah.
This don't matter. And it hit me. I was like, man, I'm done with it. I'm just kind of over that, and I thought to myself, I got to figure out how to generate some money and take back control of this, because I have become a prostitute to this industry, I felt like. And I felt like I had no say so. And so outside of my creativity and who I represented in myself, but, I was making okay money then. I think I was making 50, 60 grand a year,
Mm-hmm.
which is good to host a TV show at the time. And so, but I was kind of over it. And I didn't I actually got sick of the fame. I got sick of myself. I didn't want to see myself. And so it was somewhere between I don't know the emotion. It's hard to describe. And I know some people think I'm crazy, but so finally I'm like, man, I got to take this back, and I've got to leave this and take more control. And if I'm going to leave my family, I got to know that I'm getting paid.
Sure.
I got to clean up my life and do some things different. And so that's what I did. And so, I went and had a long talk with Realtree. I had some opportunities come at me through Gander Mountain. And we did a book. And so I figured out a way to kind of change the script. And that's what I did. And it came with a lot of stress, and it's still, I didn't escape, stuff. As I'm a business partner, just where there's money, there's corruptness. And so I just kind of went on my own way and adventure. And I thought to myself, well, if I lose it all, I still might gain more, because
Sure.
I right back in Booger Bottom chasing squirrels and rabbits, and not as big a deer as you find in Kansas, but I realized nobody was liking me because I killed a big deer.
Yeah.
I did kill a big deer, and ain't nobody give a shit. That's the biggest misconception. People don't care.
They don't.
People
man.
are people are proud. If you're friends, if it gets back to that money, or to me, buck is like scratching off a lotto ticket.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's if you win it and you got it, you got somebody close to you, or maybe it's a job. But like, if I love y'all enough and respect y'all enough, because I know y'all and I know how hard y'all work, which sincerely y'all do work hard to secure good leases and good places to kill a good deer.
Mm-hmm.
Then if Jared calls me and texts me a picture of a big buck, I'm legitimately so happy for him, because I know how hard he worked, and this was a personal goal to kill this 175-inch buck with his bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, I'm going to text him every fun thing and call him and freaking pump him up. But it doesn't change how I think of Jared. I already knew he was a good hunter. I already knew he was legit. I already knew he was a fine young man, and he was doing great things. I'm happy because he did something he set out to do. It doesn't change my opinion.
Right.
Your wife ain't going to give you a little bit more because you killed a big buck. She don't love you no more. Your daddy ain't going to love you no more. He loved you before that. Your true friends love you before that. So these big animals are for your own self. That big bass is for you. And so I realized real into this that nobody was loving me for certain things. I just needed to figure out a way to find my own way and create my own situation. And that's kind of what I did. And I started finding a little peace, but I also found that it wasn't hard to run it was hard to run a business.
Sure.
It was hard to understand every element. And so it was a journey. It was absolutely a journey, but I would say inevitably people that seek fame or that don't really know what comes with it. Fame ain't all what it's cracked up to be. And now I got a lot of, quite a few buddies that have done well. And we talk about that a lot. And listen, I ain't got nothing compared to some of my buddies. I mean, they can't go nowhere. They got pressure. It's hard to figure out who your friends are. You get a lot of hate along with you got to have pretty broad shoulders. And I'm not whining if you are one. I mean, it's not nothing to whine about, but I'm saying it's okay to be flying under the radar and just enjoy a hunt, to not have to do everything in the public eye. And so I don't know. I don't even know if I made any sense for that.
No, man,
it makes a lot of sense. It's really weird to see people worshiping other people. Like, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like from start to finish there, I think. But like, it's for some reason always, at least as long as I can remember, I've always thought that was so strange. To see people, not that people would like want to get in line to meet you, because it's like, I mean, I'd want to meet you too. Like that's cool. And I was probably in one of those lines at some point, but it's like, having done that, and even in some capacity, people are like, hey, you're that guy from that podcast, right? And it's weird. It's kind of like, yeah, that's weird. I didn't know anybody was watching it. It's weird to wrap your mind around the concept of like people. Maybe it's not to the point of worship, but it's like they really want to, like they hold you on a pedestal and say, man, you're something different. And it's like, but better than anybody. It's like, we're not. Right, like I'm here missing my son. I'm missing my son's, tryouts and this and that. And I'm a flawed person, and we are too.
Yeah, there's a fine line between like the admiration, like to your point when you talk about the ROMs and the people that you admired growing up and that were mentors growing up, and then there's on the other side of the fine line is envy, which is a dangerous place for a lot of people to be. Right. Because that's when I think you hear a lot of what ends up being, jealousy or condescending things is they're on the side of envy. It's like, it's fine to have mentors. We need leaders. We need strong men in the world, alpha men in the world to lead the place.
And it's good to look up to people. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
But on the envy side is where things get really, really nasty and get, frankly, in a dangerous scenario because people are just... in the internet world, you see it even more. Just the condescending comments, just everything pouring out negativity, and it's a state of enviness and jealousy that comes out, and it just oozes and just it's poison anymore.
I think it's an unintended consequence of just being on a platform, like where it's one sided, where it's like where people can see you and observe you, and they can see other people being like, man, he's great and this and that, and those are the people that, will spout off and there's negative comments online and stuff like that. It's like 9 times out of 10, if you get to meet those people and, like you were saying earlier, you could talk to them and say, dude, like, it's cool, man. Like we're just good. I'm just a guy, it's like almost always they're like, oh man, I thought you were this and that. And I just saw the way people were talking about you. And if they're honest, they're like, I was jealous, and I just spout it off.
100% right, guys. You nailed it. And what happens is these people that do come in and do a lot of hate, they really paint themselves red or paint the dragon red by their comment, because it takes a lot of energy to hate like that and to be mad at something that they don't even know. Like they'll go ahead and say, it must be nice killing, you guys can kill a nice buck in Ohio. Well, it must be nice hunting high fence. And they already know. Now think about, to accuse and not even know and to be completely ignorant. It takes a lot of self-hatred, not you. They're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves and their choices. And so I kind of learned a little bit to be a little bit empathetic with those folks. Sometimes I want to hit them. I do. I get mad because I do have a lot of old school in me. Matter of fact, I am old school. I believe a man should get to fight a little bit more. I believe you should get to work out your differences. I believe every once in a while ATA should get there like, hey, I'm tired of stuff, and let's go out here and get it behind us and then go drink a beer. And we'll run down here to the piano bar if you want to. But if I win, you buying, I mean, I don't know. I'm just old school in that. And I think it's become soft, but you're exactly right, Jared. When you realize that, cause I'm the same way. I have a lot of people that I looked up to, like me, man, I love Leonard Skinner, Hank Jr. And stuff. So would I have stood in line to meet them? Absolutely. Would I have stood in line to meet Noel Feather? I would have. I would have stood in line, or Chuck Adams. I mean, those are my dudes. But what happens is, and this is what I know because I've been a big fan of certain people, and I had certain people in my life that have been mentors that I've never met. There was such an anxiety of me standing there or getting a chance to first meet them that I was terrified that they would let me down. So that comes naturally also with me, and the only thing that comes the secure with me, because I know I am me, and I know that what I gave them on a Bone Collector episode is going to be the same I give them at Harrisburg or at the NWTF. And so it brings me a lot of security to know that I'm naturally going to treat somebody good. I'm going to be sarcastic and have fun and laugh and cut up and call them old lobberhead and hug their neck. And so that part of the job can be taxing, because you realize for a grown man, I mean, we're not like Luke Bryan and, dead gum, whatever, Adam Levine. I mean, there's a lot of women standing in lines. Now, back in the road trips days, it was man, I don't even talk about that segment, but it was crazy. But I was in my 20s, and well, now everybody knows it. I've kind of got a different maturity in life. Love my wife, love my youngins, love the simple things in life. And so when a grown man who's my age, that's 56 years of age, or if he's from 20 to 30, that takes a lot of pride. Men are very prideful beasts. Mm-hmm. For them to stand in line to meet another man who they, in that line, already know and feel like that they would be every bit of the successful hunter that I am, had they not had to go do drywall or to finish concrete all week. And I'll have to agree with them. I think they could. Do I think it's as easy as they think? No. But do I think they could succeed? More than likely, yes. So I've learned that, as you're talking about, you go through so many different lanes of life, good and bad, that I've kind of took it upon myself. It's probably the most serious I take my job is when there is a line of people. Man, I almost hug every dude, man. I know that sounds a little weird and gay, but man, because I don't ever know what that dude's coming down from. I don't know if he's been battling drugs. I don't know if he's been battling alcoholism. I don't know if he lost his lease. I don't know if he just got a divorce. Yep. He could have just lost his mom. You don't know. Same with these young kids that come through there. You don't know if they've been bullied. And so I don't do it out of fakeness. I do it out of complete sincerity, man. I'm a hugger, man. I hug every wife, every girl. I ain't got no intentions with them. I just want to let them know how much I respect them coming by to see me. And I'm not doing it to be fake, to not let them down, but sure. I want to give them some of myself. And I want to let them know that they matter. And I want to let them know that there ain't shit in me this a big dog, and I ain't no better than them. I'm just get a chance to represent who we are. That's all. I'm a blue collar guy. I know what a bull float is. I've hung drywall. I worked construction. I worked on air conditioners. I worked in the bow shop. Man, I got lucky. I got this job. Somebody got to do this job, and luckily it's me. But it could be you. But I'm gonna represent you and me the best of our ability in this culture, and that's what it is. I'm not trying to be above them. And I think there's a lot of people in the industry, they want to be separated. They want to be on this high mountain different. Absolutely. They want to be able to run, be able to let everybody know they can shoot further, run further, do certain things. And I don't. I want to keep things simple and to say anything I'm doing, you can do. But I'm also quick, guys, to punch the bullshit button and to bring people to reality. Like, I get so tired of the farm deer, public, private, and well, it must be nice. No, let me tell you something. Man, I've killed just as many deer and turkey on publics I've killed on private. I have no insecurity. If I lose my farm, I'm going to still hunt, and I feel like I could come to Pennsylvania and kill turkeys. I feel like I know I can kill turkeys, on public in Georgia or deer. The hardest thing a man will do, me, y'all two, or any man listening, the hardest thing to ever do is to figure out how to come up with $4,000 to $10,000 an acre in prime real estate, mm-hmm. and go own the deed to that land, mm-hmm. and to take control, and to figure out what kind of blinds, if you want a supplemental feed, and to figure out how to put tree stands and to pattern these farm deer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The most hard dream thing, every man who hunts public, every man, tree saddle lock on, their goal, they'll sit there and they might think, damn, if I had the money, I'd buy this public land right here. Absolutely. Man, money, I would buy that farm over by Lee and Tiffany. All right. But in the frustration of, well, come over here and do it over here, I do have enough cockiness in me. It's like, I can do it over there. I want to do it over there. But the hardest thing I do was to come over here and buy something while you stay over there. Mm-hmm. I can get this over here, and I can still come over where you hunting because it ain't yours. It's public. We can all hunt it, but you can't hunt mine. Now the bank owns it, but as long as I make this monthly payment, this is mine and my friends and family. Yeah. Jeremy and Jared might come down. We're gonna have a doe killing, like Jared was talking, started the podcast. So it's misconstrued in the world of legitimacy, in the world of coming up like I did. Started from the bottom. Now you're here. It's hard to own 550 acres in Georgia. I still don't own it. I'm paying for it, but it was my goal and dream. So it was harder to do this than me to go hunt public. However, I still can hunt public, and I'm not knocking a public hunter, sure. But I'm saying don't hunt public and be mad because somebody's got a farm. Yeah. Because in reality, your anger is just saying you really wished you was on that farm, but you're going to rebel while you hunt public. and this is all I got to hunt. No, it ain't all you got. It's all you got right now. You can make dreams and you can set goals and you can change your life and you can get to a place to where you can, so it's all in perception. It's all in the reality, however, of what it takes to accomplish certain goals. And so whether it's a lease, whether it's public and private, we can become the best we can become, but it doesn't make one avenue easier than the other. Overall, probably killing a public land deer is the hardest, but the true hardest thing is to own your own farm because it's expensive.
I think equally as hard, Michael, is probably, in your position with as long as the line is of people that look up to you or, have seen the show, they want to get to meet you. The line is probably longer of people who, have something negative to say or, have some bone to pick with you. And it's like, so what I'm saying is equally as hard is like to choose those battles, in how you would address that, whether it's at a grand scale or like how could you ever take each person individually and say, listen, I hear what you're saying about here's this way I'm hunting and this and that, and I'm going to justify it this way. I don't, dude, we see it in the small, the small, whatever our platform is compared to like Bone Collector. It's like the amount of people that write into us or the comments that we see on TikTok and Instagram and stuff that are like, oh, they're just this, or it's, I have a problem with whatever it is, any negative comment. It's like, man, how could I possibly address every one of those battles in a way that justifies, and it's we struggle with that. I think.
Think of the effort from those people to like sit there and take the time that they feel they need to write you a negative comment.
Well, and reading
like,
that,
dude, you need more things to do in life.
And reading that from a place of security, knowing that like, that's an exposed weakness. Like just like you're saying, the minute somebody takes the time to read and give a negative comment is like, okay, I already know that this is a hurting person, and I sympathize with those people. I don't want to make the situation worse, and some part of me wants to justify, why we're doing, based on the comment they're addressing. But it's like, man, I want to. You'd love to show.
Say what's the issue?
You'd love to show your true self to all of those people. And I was like, man, I can't think of a better way to do it than 165 3-hour long podcast. It's like, man, if you want to get to know who I am or who I've been over a 3-year period, it's like, man, just watch these conversations and you'll see where my heart lies in Jeremy's and any guests that we've had on or stuff. And so it's hard. It hurts to see those comments knowing that we've put that out there. But the reality is they haven't watched them. The people that, or they haven't met us personally. Yeah. The people that put those comments on there, it's like they don't know, right? They won't take the time to know.
Speaking out of complete ignorance. And that's what I've learned. And that looks bad on them because, it's like, it's one thing to be truly convicted and to speak out on an opinion, and it's, I completely have so much respect for somebody who says, I'm pro baiting, anti-baiting. I'm pro crossbow, anti-crossbow. Those are opinions. You can argue,
sure.
and we might have our points as to win our argument. But a lot of these people are saying and pushing a narrative that ain't even true. Mm-hmm. They're saying, well, this is that, and this is this, and it ain't neither. They're not even in the ballpark, or they don't know my story. They don't know y'all's story. They don't know Lee and Tiffany's story. They don't know possibly a Tim Wells story. They don't know the true story. But what they do know is there's some form of something that led them to know these people. And rather than to have respect, they start turning it into hate. There are some people that deserve the criticism because in some cases there are personalities and companies and producers that create a facade. It is fake. It's illegitimate. It's like some of the politicians in our government. They are illegitimate. And it's a con. There is a lot of cons in the hunting industry. There is a lot of people and fakeness and crookedness. But if you will take your time, especially in today's media, this is a good thing, and dissect it through. And if you have any ability to read a man or woman, you can figure out the legitimate from the illegitimate or the unlegitimate, whatever that word is. Mm-hmm. And it's not that hard because you get a gut instinct. That gut instinct typically don't lie.
Yeah.
And so I find a lot of times is rather than try to create a lane that is showing their true passion of hunting something, it could be possibly hunting public. It could be a certain arrow setup. It could be traditional hunting versus compound hunting. Mm-hmm. It could be well, I'm a flintlock guy and I'm not into the inline guy. But a lot of times, if they're passionately into that, they don't really have to bash the other. They just have to show how fun it is. You don't have to bash baseball as you play slow pitch softball. You can just say, hey, dude, when you get in your 30s and your high school career's over, get out there, drink some natty lights and try to freaking, jack a home run. We can hit 5 in this game and have a good time. If you play college ball, you don't sit there and talk, we're in college and freaking baseball sucks, just about soft. And I think that's what some people do. So to knock you off your pedestal or your lane, they're going to talk about their lane. But in reality, their lane ain't even what they want to be. They still want to be over there at an Encinitas ranch. Right. They still want a new Hoyt. Well, but they like, got them. So I'm going to fake it this way. You're going to do this way and that way. And so you have to be, some of the newer content people have to be very careful. So you could pick out bone collector like, well, let's just talk about your, here, I'll give some examples and I'll call names. All right. You talk about, say, call it a bone collector. Let's call it Lee and Tiffany, the Crush. Let's call it Mark Drury. You can tell, man, there's a lot of people that pump money into those shows that advertise. Yep. All right. And so in that, you got to show the love to a degree. You can do it in hard sell, soft sell, or, legitimacy. And luckily for a company like Bone Collector, we've been very blessed with every product that we have that we use. We really like it and trust it. We really do. I mean, it's like, I'm excited. You know how exciting it is to go freaking take a Mega Meat broadhead with a Hoyt bow and we get to work with those guys. That's amazing. I love it. It's a great product. All right. Well, long story short, when you start looking across the board, there's some people say, well, I hate that. Every other, 7 minutes, there's a commercial and there's this and they're talking about this and that. Oh, I kind of too don't like it. But then it's like, we're going to start a show. We're going to start a show and we ain't going to have partners. We're just going to show the true passion. Well, all of a sudden it takes off. You start getting 20, 30,000 views every time you do a little old YouTube drop or social media drop. And then guess what's going to happen? Next thing you know, you're going to have possibly somebody at Matthews or Hoyt say, hey, man, notice y'all just shooting a plethora of bows. What would it be like if y'all shot Hoyt? What if we dropped y'all, maybe 20 grand, give you 4 new bows? Like, oh, shit. What now? Like, and then, you start this thing out of passion. Well, next thing you know, guess what you have become? How are you any different, Lee and Tiffany, man?
Yeah.
You were Lee and Tiffany, just like us. And so my point is, guess what you're going to have to do? Talk about them Hoyt bows a little bit. Talk about that bow a little bit. So next thing you know, everything that you did, you took advantage of a lane. You told all your customers, we ain't doing this. We're tired of the corporate shows. Are you going to say no to that money? So be careful what you ask for. You might just get it. Because when somebody comes up and says, hey, we'll do this. I mean, I look at the Bud Light thing. Look at all the folks that said they would never drink Bud Light. They some hardcore personalities that said it, but Bud Light coming in with $1 million checkbook. Some of them are in commercials drinking them beer pretty regular now.
Yeah.
Because like, wait a minute. I didn't know y'all was going to pay this. I didn't know if we did this, you was going to do it. So a lot of the same shows, especially YouTube providers and social media influencers, you got to be careful how you set your lane up. If you set your lane up wrong, you stuck in that lane. You better know you love that lane. You better love it. If by God you're gonna be the big buck killer, you better stay the big buck killer. You're gonna look like a dang idiot going back and shoot that 100-inch 8-pointer. You're gonna look really strange. And so what I've learned is our lane is fun. I like to have fun. Sometimes I like to kill a big deer. Sometimes I want to squirrel hunt. Sometimes I want to build fire and build the best chili and turn on a good football game and go. Like, I don't know. I like to have fun. I hunt because it's fun, not because I need my ego stroked or I need to do something to outbeat the next hunter. I tell people all the time, I'll get to ATA. My favorite line at ATA, people start showing me all these big deer and like, well, I did kill these, but you got me this year. You kill more big deer, but I outfunned your ass. I outfunned you.
I think, Michael, like, and here's a real conversation. Like that's the ugly side of the hunting industry, I think. And you probably have, I'm sure you do more perspective on it than I do, but like we, through Stone Road and, even today, it's like we've gotten exposure to people like yourself and throw anybody who takes money from sponsors into the bucket here. And it's like, I went from, I think at one point, like as a teenager and stuff, being like a lot of admiration for like, man, that's awesome. The same way that you did, you would have looked at David Blanton or, said, man, what a huge opportunity, for me to be able to represent these companies. And like it's humbling to be able to be, on a TV show like this, on a platform and stuff, to at a certain point, and you were spearheading that. So, I mean, it's like you didn't have a chance to, like, I don't think, look at anybody else necessarily and be like, well, here's a potential pitfall of that. We were several years behind you, right? So we're looking at, guys that you had mentioned there, the Crush, yourself, the Shocky, run down the list of anybody who's made a lot of money from sponsors or was in any sort of that position. I hit a point where I was like excited about the opportunity and like, man, that would be something I could aspire to feeling really disgusted by it. Just kind of the industry in whole, where I'm like, that's not what I want. And not that any of you guys did anything wrong at all, as much as it was, I felt bad. I felt for those guys that I saw making a lot of money and doing things that I thought was really cool. I was like, man, they have to, like, they have to,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As far as like, you have to make money at the end of the day, like to have you know what I'm saying?
At 100%. And like I said, that there's no disrespect. We're saying it's a respect, because what happens is it can change your perspective, because it can, if you allow it, it will take the fun out of it. You will feel the pressure. You will feel the pressure of a performance, not necessarily in the fun of the hunt. And so obviously what you're portraying and how you are measured by how much product you sell. And another thing, here's what changed, Jared, and this don't get talked about. And this is something that my years are starting to tell and show. But when you look back in those years, let's call it the late 80s, early 90s, the years even, Jared, when you were talking about you were born, yep. And then all of a sudden industry elevated. And then I would say in the 90s, man, you start getting this content, whether it's TNN or through, Peterson's bow hunting or,
yep.
North American whitetail, whatever, well, if you look back, Quaker Boy Game Calls, owned by Dick Kirby. Night and Hail, man, it's owned by Harold and David, who are the Night and Hail. Primos is owned by Primos. Toxie Hayes and Cuz Strickland over there at Mossy Oak. Bill Jordan, David Blanton. Soon into it, it's me, who's like family over there at Realtree. So any time you went to a show, man, the campfire is so warm. Now, obviously, did Harold Knight, David Hill, Will Primos, Bill, Toxie, I can name a ton of people. Did they make a lot of money? Did they become millionaires? Yes, but it was before a lot of private equity and a lot of things like that. But the campfire was warm. That's what we talk about in the ATA. How warm was it?
Yeah.
Whether you was a snotty-nosed little teenager from Pennsylvania or Georgia, you come in there and you see Harold Knight, come over here, boy.
Just shake his hand.
You got, look here, we got some pork chop sandwiches back here. Come in and get you one of these, boy. Next thing you know, you're like, I will buy anything these guys got. These guys are the nicest uncle. They treated me. But all of a sudden, the campfire starting to get more strategic. We start realizing that there's millions of dollars in this space, that we have 12 to 15 million licensed hunters. And then we start doing the analytics, and we can look into it. Now the world is very analytical. We'll be able to tell you exactly how many people watched or listened to this podcast. Yep. I can now go back and look at every like. I can break it down to figure out, did we get shadow banned? Did we get this? A lot of stuff we do with you guys. You guys yep. understand the IT and the analytics and how do we do things, and how do we, what's organic? What do we do in putting ads and different things? So my point is, everything's easy to measure. Back then it wasn't. It was a touchy-feely world of if I'm Bone Collector and I want to work with you two guys and you're doing a hunting show, whether it's YouTube or Outdoor Channel or TNN, I'm looking at this like, hey, man, I'm going to send you this product. If y'all don't mind, help me sell a few of these grunt calls, and here's your 20 grand. And man, I love you. Hey, and by the way, Christy's going to be frying some chicken. Y'all come down and get you some sweet tea. And I got this new bourbon I want y'all to try. And I got this new Cuban cigar. Y'all come on down. Well, that was it.
Yeah.
I believed in y'all. Now it's different. Now everything is measured at a higher level. It's like an NFL. You don't perform, you are cut. You better figure out a way. And so there's less, there's less feeling in it. There's less, it's a colder vibe. And
sure,
it's up, you better perform and get it done. So what happens is, my buddies like Nate Hosey and Randy Birdsong, there's a tremendous amount of pressure, to the point that I pick on them. Like, God dang, man, I can't even see the deer. You got 75-cent bottles and freaking backpacks from deer. And they'd have just laughed and turned like, hey, dang, man, I know, but man, we got it in our contracts.
Yeah.
And we posted.
Yeah.
I said, man, you talking about the nicest folks in the world, but there is pressure. You got to make sure that stuff shows up. You got to show that. And so it gets obnoxious and aggravating, but what do you do? And so that's why sometimes I'm not a fan. This sounds crazy, but I'm actually not a fan sometimes of the hunting industry, the mechanical bolts and pieces of the capitalist kind of vibe, because at the end of the day, I think the best product we have to sell is the passion of the culture and the hunter, not the passion of who's the baddest, who's the biggest deer killer, who's the most macho, who's the best in shape, who's the biggest athletic guy, who's this and that. It's about who and what can we celebrate around this culture that makes more people want to get involved, because I do think it gets people off drugs. I think it gets them through hard times. I think the camaraderie around being around a campfire with other alpha males is one of the most therapeutic things you can be, that you around. And so I think there's more there than just trying to figure out how to make $1 million off a new call or a new product or gimmick. However, there's nothing wrong with that. That is the American way. It's the American dream. It's cool to innovate stuff and create things that are so amazing that I can say, guys, I don't know if you had this, but this sucker, this new broadhead is the real deal. Get a knock on son. Absolutely. It's expensive. They're $30 for 3, but you should get some. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that too, but it's hard to balance, Jared. I think that's it. And so no matter which lane or route you go, I just tell people, be clear and understand exactly who you are when you venture out, because you might just get what you ask for. You might approach public hunting and be the best at it, but you can't just run back over here to hunt with the Drury's.
Right.
You can't just run back over here.
Well, I mean, dude, it's a good point. So you're talking about the hunting public. I've said before, you know, like when we've had Aaron on the podcast multiple times. Like I love Aaron. I think those guys are great individuals and stuff. But like the very first time that I saw the hunting public, the very first thing I said is like, so you know, they have to hunt public forever now. Like that's the worst. That's the worst kind of prison you could ever make for yourself. Yeah. You know, and I am happy for those guys that they've seen a lot of success, and that's awesome. Like, you know, they've inspired a lot of people to get into hunting and stuff, and they've done some really great things. I think those are all awesome. We've talked with Aaron about all that, but yeah, like you're saying, you've pigeonholed yourself.
Same with like Lee at Seek One. It's like, so he only can hunt suburban stuff for the rest of his life. Like, well, what if he wants to go hunt cornfields in open Kansas? Like, that's not really the Seek One thing. Well,
but to the bigger picture of like what we're talking about with the sponsorship model and stuff is, dude, I think it was set up for failure is not the right word, because, you know, nobody that's succeeded in the hunting industry is a failure, but it's like the very way, just the nature of how that's set up, where manufacturers control the dollars and it flows to individuals who then promote them on a space that they're paying for on the outdoor channel. I mean, that is the model of, right? That's how it works. Is manufacturers hold dollars, they pay it to content producers.
Which is very unique to most things. Like most real TV is not bought airspace, right? It's, you know, you're selling your content to a network or whatever.
There's no version of that to me doesn't end in commercialization, or, you know, call it disaster, right? It's like no person is immune to dollars. It's like, man, you're telling me you pay me $1 million to shoot this bow or whatever. How do I turn that down? I've got a family to support. I've got a business that needs to continue to be run. It's like, you know, whether any of us set out to do it or not, ultimately this becomes your livelihood, and you're running a business, and businesses exist to produce an income, right, for your family or whatever your intentions are to do with it. There's nothing wrong with that, but inevitably, you know, it leads to a place where it's like, well, it's my job to promote products. And at the same time, I love hunting and I want to make great content. And it's like, then you try to live in a world, you know, and you've done a great job at it. So, you know, some people have to continue to walk the line of like, how do I be true to myself and to our brand with the partners that we work with, and also be true to myself and my passion for hunting by creating, you know, stuff that we want to do. And it's, we struggle with that. And
the number one thing I hear is people say, man, I really hate that people are taking hunting and commercializing it and making money. And it's like, Man, for as long as hunting has really been around, not maybe the market hunting, but like traditional hunting's been around, it has been a business. Somebody is making money somewhere off of, the old, Marlin 3030 that you bought, or the old, Winchester pump that you used to buy. It doesn't matter. Somebody somewhere along the lines was making money of it. It's just very visible now compared to where it was.
I mean, dude, look at where we're at. I'm sorry, Mike. I'll let you jump in here. Look at where we're at. I'm obviously not trying to offend any. Like, we're all in this together, but it's like there's no denying that where we were at 10, 15 years ago, as far as like outdoor content and look at ATA as a representation of like, man, it was a brotherhood, right? It was and to where we're at now, where it's like, I know the Outdoor Channel is still doing some cool things, but it is not the same. Like, we're at a pace now where it's like it's Jeremy and I have talked for hours about it. It's like, dude, we're
very fragmented now.
Where are we at? Like, as an industry, and it's like, fortunately through the podcast we get to bring people on that are still passionate, and we have great conversation and stuff. But as far as like a place that we are represented to the public, and that we can consume content, and that products can be promoted and stuff, it's like, if it's not dead, it's like, man, we're on life support for sure. And that whole model we're talking about, man, is frankly, I think it's has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy.
Man, Jared, we probably have been using Muddy products for at least 10 years now.
It's a long time, dude.
It's been a long time. And I can remember when it was simply just safety harnesses and camera arms of all things. And, that's evolved to where you and I both have a bunch of Muddy box blinds as well.
I would say a bunch. But yeah, they've come a long way. And certainly the box blinds are huge. Shot that buck over your shoulder out of a Muddy box blind a couple of years ago. The harness and all of the other safety accessories really are a major component of what Muddy offers for me. We've had some injuries in the past. Some tree stand accidents. This is all back before we were using, frankly, harnesses, the lineman's belt while we're hanging stuff, and the safe lines. I have those in every single one of, our fixed tree stands now. And we really have made safety a priority. That's a big deal for us. And, Muddy has everything we need for that.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about Muddy is anyone listening to the HUNTR Podcast can save 20% using the code HUNTR20. That's HUNTR20. Anything that you can see on the Muddy Outdoors store online, use that code, save yourself 20% for this hunting season.
Go Muddy.
I think so. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing people, when they get into the hunting industry, and let's just say they're doing TV shows and they're hunting on TV, they have this thought about themselves that they're hunters. Well, you are a hunter, but you're not in the hunting business anymore. You're in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
It's similar to what we're experiencing right now in college football. Everybody's up in arms about NIL and the transfer portal. There's got to be something, that they figure out how to manage this better. And I think the hunting industry is in the same place to a degree. But at the same time, I think what happens is we want the Saturday, when you watch college football, and I'll reference another industry for those who are thinking about the hunting, but I'll reference another industry to kind of make some comparisons. A lot of people hate the NIL. They have no problem with Nick Saban making $20 million a year to coach.
Right.
And a lot of times when we're sitting there drinking our beer and our little cheese dip, and we're MFing and cussing these teams that we watch, we forget that they're 18-year-old young men.
Yeah.
And so then you start realizing that it's probably the biggest, sweatshop in America when it comes to kids. I mean, same kids made these hats that were 17 and 18. I mean, we got not civil rights, but people marching the streets to free the sweatshops. But in reality, these kids are going to these universities creating billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But we turn a blind eye to it because we just want to hear the go Big Blue, go Dogs, and watch these kids play football and win a national championship. But guess what comes with national championships? Guess what comes with all these bowl games? Somebody somewhere is not making millions, billions of dollars.
Exactly.
And so guess what you see more than hunting stuff when you walk in Dixon Academy? You see, I mean, you go right now today and go buy any place in the country, buy a Michigan National Championship T-shirt.
Yep.
And somebody's getting that money. And so the point is the kids are generating that money. So hunters, inevitably, we are the one who fuel this industry, whether it's those of us producing shows, those of us who watch, those of us who buy the bows, the arrows. So it all goes hand in hand. It's necessary. We just got to figure out a way to do it with I think legitimacy is it. I don't like the posers. I don't like the people who claim to be these experts, and somehow the public allows them to be these experts.
Right.
I mean, there's people here talking era technology, and and I ain't gonna call no names. I have no problem with it, but they'll sit there and diss me or you or whatever, talking about an era setup. In reality, they have no diversity in their hunting at all.
Yeah.
And they're talking about one-dimensional thing, and they've gained all this notoriety by preaching a bunch of BS, and people eat it up. We'll have certain, people eating liver like people really eat liver, to the point to where if somebody says, "What do you do with your liver, Wadell?" Like, I feed it to my dog. Hell, I don't know. I throw it in the gut pile. Coyotes. I ain't eat liver. I don't like beef liver. I damn sure don't like deer liver.
Yeah.
What's wrong with saying that? And somehow we've got this thing. Are you kidding me? What a wasteful act, eating your liver. Well, you eat it. Give me an address. I got a deal. I got some meat you maker dehydrate all of them and ship it right to you frozen. Eat them all. I'm going to eat the backstrap.
Yep.
I'll still eat a squirrel and a rabbit, but I ain't no liver. But all of a sudden, you got this fad. It gets back to what you're saying, Jared. Sometimes people follow things blindly without discovering what are they truly about. And that's what I would say. Find the legitimacy. Take a little bit from everybody and find a lane. And what you'll find, a lot of everybody is right, but you have to have enough security to find the lane of what you really want. And that could be whether you're somehow in the closet and you really want to shoot a crossbow, but you're like, no, I'm only going to shoot a vertical bow because I'm not going to be this way. But what does it hurt if you did? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a freaking man. It's yours, man. And that's the biggest thing too that I'm very aware of. Man, we are blessed. Here it's a Tuesday. And I say this all the time. We're talking about hunting. We're all doing our job, promoting, talking.
Yeah.
There's somebody on a roof right now. They like to hunt like me and you and y'all. I mean, they finish concrete. They driving a truck cross country. They teaching a kid in school. They're a football coach. They're a firefighter. And so what I realize is we forget sometimes in the hunting industry as we preach all this stuff. There's a father that put in 50 hours a week that still has a wife that wants to go to Applebee's, and get that, Santa Fe lime chicken and one of them milkshakes or maybe a little old Mate cocktail, whatever you call it, and go watch a movie and have romantic night with her husband. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, well, okay, I'll do that Saturday night. So, but man, Sunday morning, I'm going to get up and go hunt. I'm going to get to hunt. And then at the Applebee's dinner, wife leans up and says, hey, Sarah's got a dance recital in the morning. Like, oh God, are you serious? Like I was going, man. They told me I looked at that moon chart and looked at that little app Drury's got me, and I listened to the podcast, the HUNTR Podcast, and they said Sunday was going. Well, you are coming to the recital. Well, guess what? They don't get to go.
Yeah, no hunt.
They're good hunters. They ain't even told their wife that they spent $1,800 on a new Hoyt. Mm-hmm. They ain't even told her that they didn't listen to T-Bone on this podcast, and then talked them into buying some mega meats. They ain't even told them they spent that much money on that. They ain't told them what they put in their lease, only to find out they can't even go. They can't even go. Life's responsibilities, they can't even do it. So what do? We get on our shows and our podcasts like, technically we probably shouldn't shoot these 3-year-old deer. We get them to be 4. And technically, I'll be honest with you, we probably should let them go to 7. And I ain't saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying you better remember, if there's 14 million of us, there's 2 million of us that can relate to that. And there's another however many millions. They out there turning a wrench and they're just hoping they can go hunting. Just sit in a stand. Are you kidding me? See daybreak, see a frosty morning. They ain't going to get to Kansas. They ain't going to a lot of them won't get a chance to kill a 130-inch deer with a bow and arrow. So who am I to call them a Bambi killer if they shoot a 2.5-year-old deer or if they do a certain thing? Because I get to live it every day. Every day I'm talking to professionals and knowledgeable people. I've got that. And so who do I meet in these lines, Jared? It's those guys. Yeah. And they live in me. They're living through y'all. They're living through our experiences. Yeah. And so I know that they could achieve the same thing if they didn't have the responsibilities that they had. Does it mean that I feel completely sorry? We all make our change. We all make our decisions in life. And if you chose that life, sometimes that life chooses you. Sometimes if you can map things out, you can make solid decisions and maybe set your goals to a certain degree. But I do know there's a lot of people that don't get to hunt a lot, that love it, that are good at it, that they just don't because they got kids, they got responsibilities. Can they spend $15,000-$20,000 a year on hunting, or do they have to buy that pontoon boat to take the kids to the lake, to eat peanut butter and sandwiches and pull them around on a tube? And I think the industry does forget that a lot.
Absolutely.
So having fun, man. Chase what you want. Chase the angle you want, man. That's why I don't want us. When I say us, bone collector, I want to basically, I'm not going to do anything I don't like. You've never seen me hunt a muskox. I mean, I don't think that'd be fun. I've never shot an elephant. I've been to Africa, but I've never desired to shoot an elephant. I'm not against it. Never desired to shoot a lion or something like that. I've got my things I like to do. I do what we love, but like our season's going out, man, I got me 2 fine squirrel dogs, and I go every day that I get a chance, man. I'll round up people from the neighborhood and kids, and I love it. I love to trap. I love just be out there, and y'all been to my farm, and I just love a good time and camaraderie with the men and families. And I don't know, it's real simple. I think we make it complicated. I think we make it complicated because I always say that the industry, and especially the hunting shows, are bad about trying to create glamour shots.
Yeah.
And they're afraid of any imperfections. And indeed, imperfections are, in my opinion, what make you so likable. Meaning you don't have to be macho. You don't have to be this. You can just be regular dude and have fun, and you're going to have success. And if you're legitimate and you're solid, you're going to show what you can do. I mean, that's what I tell people. Everybody talks about this and that, let's get back to public and private. Here's what I say. What you going to do when that big old buck walks by you at 40 yards? What you going to do? Are you going to freaking put them in the coffin? Are you going to come back with some excuse because you don't like mechanical broadheads, or you should have listened more to this podcast and your arrow didn't penetrate right? Or are you just going to put it like, well, maybe I just screwed up. Maybe I got. A lot of these killers, man, they freaking anchor them, man. They put it down, and whether it's public or private or farm, deer, high fence, they're killers and they're good at it. But then guess what spins off that? Guys, them guys are all about killing. I'm about letting them win.
Yeah.
Well, man, that is the most. I don't even know if we've seen that movement. We've seen a lot in the trans community and gay community, but we ain't even seen that movement.
Michael,
I don't even know how to even understand that movement.
Yeah.
Man, my wife is beautiful. I don't want to leave on a frosty morning, just go out there and let him win. I ain't saying I got to kill something, but if he walks by me, I'm going to be a little depressed if I screw it up. Yeah. I'm only going to experience the possibility of a nice sunrise, a good north brisk wind, knowing y'all down the ridge from me hunting, and one of us kill something and just to have a good time. All ain't lost if we don't.
Sure.
But I ain't going to let them win. I got up that morning to choose to see if I could win. And I just think it's the weird, most sloth cop-out of once again, of a weird hate on those that do.
Yeah, I think it's just a weird it's a weird way of just trying to find a scapegoat or a roundabout way of just saying, like, they don't want to admit that they didn't succeed, and it's, maybe that's part of the alpha man side of things, but like, listen, we all mess up, we all fail at things, like that's how you get better at it. One of the things that I was going to ask you though is like, if you look at that heyday of like, let's say early to mid 2000s, even up to like 2010, 12, we had, according to statistics, right, we had more hunters. It seemed like the industry was just booming. But it also didn't seem like anybody had a problem finding a place to hunt. You fast forward that to now, supposedly we have less hunters. The industry kind of just seems fragmented, but yet from everybody, like the biggest complaint that we hear is, and again, going back to private public, is a lot of these public guys are like, well, I don't have anywhere else to hunt. Like, this is all I got left. Like, there are no other places. Yep. And it just doesn't make sense to me, man. Like, I don't understand. At one point in time, like, hunting was such a big forefront industry and such a booming thing, but nobody bitched about it then.
Let's do this real quick, because I think, and I'll tack onto your question or your comment there. I think this is one of those situations we're talking about, Michael, where it's like, we may have sat down at these tables with different opinions on, things like crossbows and baiting. Right? Obviously, that's what we talk about a lot. This is a great opportunity for us to be able to sit down and I think by the end of this, we will see eye to eye. Like if we could provide some context for, I think people will see bits and pieces of us saying like, man, you know, those guys just hate crossbow hunters, or, you know, the baiting thing. And it's like, that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, if I just sit and give it to you honest, it couldn't be further from the truth. I want everybody to be able to hunt however they want to hunt and shoot whatever deer or, game that they want to shoot within their legal means. Where we get frustrated and where that whole argument, that discussion comes from is we see people not happy with their hunting experience.
Yeah.
And that couldn't bum us out more than anything. I see people losing places to hunt. I see people not having, the types of deer that they want to, or the experiences that they want to have dwindling. I see that going away. And there's, as much as I am like a capitalist, right? I see capitalism driving a lot of that. It's like as long as people can't afford to use every tool at their disposal and buy as much land as they can afford to kill the biggest deer possible, they will continue to do it. And as technology has evolved, we have all become freaking trained assassins. You know what I mean? There's a group of us that can go to any state in the country and use our tools to kill the biggest buck there. It will happen. I can almost guarantee you we're going to kill them.
Yep. Or you at least got the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're as lethal as we have ever been. And as much as it kills us to have to address these things, we have to look at, well, why are people's experiences sucking? And thus, why are they leaving? Why do we have dwindling hunting numbers? Because I know how awesome hunting is. Why would anybody want to quit? I don't understand how that's happening. So we're, over the past 3 years, our minds have been circling this phenomena, and we're like, what?
Yes. And Jared, you know what you did? You answered it with your statement, because here's what an experience is. And you're exactly right. Prime example is like when we all started hunting, we went deer hunting.
Yep.
And so what happens is the industry didn't create this. I can't let the industry take credit for ruining the experience, nor can I let private equity or hunting show. We were allowed to be influenced by it. Now there is a reality to it. Because of that influence, there's people that strive to kill 200-inch deer. And if they do have the capital and the money, they will go lease that land, that family land that we grew up hunting, that farmer's land that used to want you to kill every deer because he was eating his corn. They're there to kill a 200-inch deer. I think it's starting to come full circle. What I mean by that is now some of the people I'm taking hunting now are people, without name dropping, there's no way I can't, but like a Theo Vaughn or Caleb Presley or some of these guys.
I saw that.
They could care less if it's a long beard. They could care less if it's a big buck. They just want the experience. Me, y'all too, and this world of people that's doing the complaining, we've already had this experience. So now our desire is this giant deer. And I tell people all the time, if you spend all your money, burn all your relationships just to kill, say, a 180-inch deer, and you're not careful how you do it, you're going to look up at that deer and you're going to think, why and what drove me to get to this dead styrofoam animal? We have created in our own mindset because of influence. Not saying I wasn't responsible for helping influence some of that. So I will take responsibility. However, we have got to where the old typical Pennsylvania hunting camp or Georgia hunting camp that we grew up in isn't enough for any of us.
Yeah.
We will love it, but we don't want to go hunt, man. We'll sit around, make chili and keep the beer cold and laugh. But in our mind, we have become arrogant to it. Like, I ain't gonna go shoot no little old 7-point. I don't care nothing about that.
Yeah.
I'm a big buck killer. Yeah. I'm better than that. I'm a vertical bow killer. I mean, I'm a technician. I'm a big, like I said, getting back what Jerry said, we got all this. But then all of a sudden we start running out of resources unless we are a millionaire, which most are not.
Right.
And so therefore our experience is still available, but the experience does not satisfy us. It's like, don't ever date a good looking woman who can cook, because you'll never want an ugly one that can't. Never. Or you won't want to date a good looking one that can't cook and is a bitch.
Yeah.
You better be careful, because your experiences is what's going to lead to strive you to the next experience. We are now a veteran group of licensed hunters. The new hunters don't complain. The new hunters are happy to go throw up a little old Coleman tent, hunt on public, and Are we going to squirrel hunt or are we going to fish? They're just excited about figuring out how to tie the first bowline knot. Me and you and the majority of people that's tuned into it every day are the ones that's bitching. We're aggravated that we can't go. We're aggravated. Why do we stop hunting Georgia and I went to Illinois? I was tired of killing a little bucket buck. I was tired to kill that little basket. And so my point is, I think we got to somehow go full circle. Like I've been started enjoying squirrel hunting. We got to find other things. And we got to start realizing, what do you accomplish? What does it really mean? And I'm not against trophy hunting, because I think trophy hunting is why we got such a healthy herd. Mm-hmm. And because of that healthy herd, these farmers have realized is, wait a minute, these big old whitetails are more valuable than my cows.
Absolutely.
Yes, there was an industry out there at one time. Folks just had a few steers out there and they'd butcher it for the family. Now they realize, wait a minute, if we open up a few more acres, take some more timber down and fertilize this thing, and then if we can do it organically, we got $1 million worth of head of cattle out here. Well, those same cattle farmers and those farmers that grow the corn and beans have realized, well, at one time, our most valuable thing was these bean and corn. Now they, wait a minute, so let's kill all the deer. They would have eradicated them.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, not even with the state's approval, they would go kill every deer. You could go anywhere, knock on the door in Illinois. In 91, talking about me, when I graduated high school, I drove to Illinois, Southern Illinois, and every door I knocked on, I gained permission. Everyone.
Crazy.
And you know what the number one rule is? Shoot every deer you see. Well, I didn't do that. I wasn't going to go from Georgia to Illinois to be a poacher.
Yeah.
But did not see it as a resource because of social media, because of what we're doing. Everybody realized that this real estate and this resource, from the turkeys to the deer to the largemouth bass to the quail to the pheasant to the mule deer, there are a resource as valuable as the cattle, as the corn, as the soybeans. So a lot of it's been evolution, but I think we have been brainwashed at our own experience of what we're gaining. And I think we got to be careful. Why do they tell you, it sounds crazy comparison, but why does anybody tell you not to get addicted to porn? It ruins your intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten addicted to 200-inch deer, and it's ruined the experience of a 100-inch deer. Sure. We have gotten addicted to seeing a 4.5-year-old deer and letting him walk to see if he'll blow into a 180 the next year. Nothing wrong with it. Once again, be careful with your experience, because it's going to be harder to obtain that experience. Yeah. What do we do when we take our wife to St. Elmo's in a dark room, and you get her a nice little martini, and maybe she wears a nice little evening wear? Man, you kind of messed up your Applebee's experience a little bit. Yeah. Your wife can be like, can you take me to St. Elmo's? I don't know if I want to go to Golden Corral. So,
well, yeah, and it's almost like it's the big buck thing too. Like you said, guy walks up and said, hey, check out these bucks. At one point in time, man, if somebody showed me 150-inch deer or whatever, I'm like, man, that's a giant. Like, that's awesome. Now, like, to my own fault, like, somebody showing me 130, 140, 50, like, I see them on camera all the time. Like, I'm kind of numb to it a little bit, which sucks, because those deer are amazing deer. But I mean, even on the social media side, like, to the point of creating content, like, how many people, like, somebody calls me and says, oh, you so-and-so killed a 170-inch deer, and it's like, yeah, big deal. A lot of guys did this week,
Well, for what it's worth, Michael, like, we're not in that category at all, I don't think. Like, I think we're... No. And I'm just saying, I wholeheartedly agree with your diagnosis that, like, the industry has a lot to do with whatever that is. It's promoting of killing a big buck, and it's an awesome thing. Like, it's not inherently evil. It's cool to want to do that, but it's like the porn example that you used. It's like, man, you can only take that so far. There's a realm of possibility.
Yeah. And we've reached that ceiling. Most people, most average hunters, have reached the ceiling to where reality is now way below what expectations are set.
Well, and it's also it's not just that. So I think that your diagnosis is correct, and I think we would wholeheartedly agree. We would say, man, the industry has a lot of responsibility for driving, for promoting trophy hunting, and that's caused all kinds of things, like whether it's numbness to these big deer, or for people to sink all of their resources into locking down ground and stuff like that. I think that that's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. I also think, though, that there's been a lot of change to just the hunting landscape, mainly in the form of technology. If I could point to, probably the number one thing is trail cameras. More specifically, cell cameras. And as this conversation goes on, I'll start to lump in other technologies like crossbows, like it's not a technology, but baiting, how these things are included in seasons. Inherently, I have no beef with those things whatsoever. I also have no beef whatsoever. In fact, I very much want for people to hunt the way that they want to hunt and shoot whatever they want to shoot. Whatever experience you want out of hunting, if it's solely for meat, if you want to go out and shoot every button buck on your farm, I think within a legal means, that should be your right to do so, and I'm going to advocate that you do it. In fact, even right now, right, so this being the case, I would be a hypocrite not to say these things are legal. I think you should go out in Georgia or Ohio and use your cell camera over a corn pile with a box blind with your, yada, 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 run down the list. Like, that's how you kill them. You have every resource at your disposal. And because of the pressure that the hunting industry has said, hey, man, we want to kill big bucks, that's what people are going to do. They're going to use every tool at their disposal to achieve that. And I think what we're perceiving is where we're at right now in this loss of access is we attribute a lot of this loss of access thing and the reason people's experiences are declining to those things and the fact that they haven't been regulated. So it's funny, man. Yeah. We'll get T-Bone on here at some point. I know T-Bone is all about the baiting, and it's funny because T-Bone and I will have the same come to Jesus where I'm like, me too, dude. Like, we just shot a ton of does over corn and stuff, and it's a super effective tool. I agree. If you're not baiting, you're waiting. Absolutely. However, I know a lot of people whose experiences are declining because everybody and their brother is taking the ultimate advantage of not just the bait piles, but everything in conjunction. And they're also being fueled by an industry who's promoting this stuff to us to the point where we just can't all have it. We can't have it all. It's not possible. It's a limited resource.
You know what it is? It's the fact that the rich man is the one that's going to get it, and that sucks. But
yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate because what has happened, and Jared, I agree 100% with you, and you're right.
I knew he would.
Yeah, these experiences that we have in technology have absolutely helped amplify the experience, but all of a sudden the experience becomes less fulfilling.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
that's exactly right.
I have to do another name drop here, but we go now. The last 3 years, I went out with Blake Shelton out in his place in Oklahoma, and he's just as redneck as any friend I've got, and obviously done well, made a lot of money. Well, Blake has made the decision he don't run any trail cameras, none. And when you hunt, he said, man, I just want to come, and he's always got a fire pit. Blake has made, a lot of money, but he's like, listen, man, Wadell, won't you bring some of that deer backstrap, and I'm gonna order us a turducken. I'm not gonna have a cook, and we stay at his place, and man, we hunt, we ride around, shoot hogs, and have a fire pit every night, and just have the best time. And we just look at the wind and figure out where we want to go, and don't have a clue what's coming in there, other than we know that Blake has some big free roaming whitetails. And I ended up killing like a 168 last year there, or year before last, I guess say now, because we entered 24. But and dude, I will say for me, it's been the funnest thing. And so what I learned is, and I said, Blake, congratulations, you took back your experience.
Yeah,
you took it back. And our industry needs to figure out a way to do that with kids' gloves, because we're not condemning somebody for going to shoot, just trophy or running and using all the technology. Nothing wrong with that. But you know what? I do think it's almost like our cell phones. I don't know if y'all do this, but I catch myself, and hunting is no different as how we use resources and technology. Man, it's easy for me to sit here and watch something with my boys, or my kids and my wife. And the whole time I'm over here, looking at TikTok, or, looking, the kids over here looking at YouTube. You can't even have family movie night. So I think we have to be, I guess what I'm also saying, we have to take some self-responsibility, that you just have to learn to set up your situation, your experience, and have the right group of buddies that will do that. But I hear more negativity with some of my veteran hunting buddies hunting here in Georgia than I hear positive, because they're mad, and this guy ended up, and the neighbor killed that deer, and the lease done went up, and just ain't seeing no good deer. I don't know if we was recording even when we started, but the first thing I said, man, my farm's been off this year, and I got to thinking, well, I got several 140s on my place. 140 is a big deer. And I'm as I'm talking to you guys, I'm realizing I had 7 mature bucks that I readily saw, and I'm complaining.
Yeah.
Anybody brother they think I got it made to have this place to hunt. It's magical. It's unbelievable. But I'm complaining about it. So I take responsibility into that. And so, yeah, Jared, I don't know the fix, guys, but I do agree that I think it's kind of life has gotten things out of control. And it's the one thing that I just beseech people to take it back and make it your own, because if you don't, what other experiences we have that we can enjoy? Hunting is the last thing that if I knew, if y'all come down, tomorrow, and I said, hey boys, why don't y'all come down? Let's go run my squirrel dogs and kill some squirrels. Think of the anxiety that lifts all the way. Well, if you come to my place, I'm talking serious and I got a lot of philosophical, but at the end of the day, I just want to have fun. And so,
right.
People gonna have fun if you're around a campfire with me, because we're gonna have fun. We're gonna eat good food. My wife's gonna cook, and we're gonna grill. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna have some Skinner playing and some freaking Hank Jr. And we're gonna have a good time and go murder some squirrels and laugh and cut up. Might end up at the VFW saying karaoke. Promise you, that's the way we roll, right? You ain't gotta worry about nothing. Go hunt squirrels. Go shoot them. You know how old they are. And that's what I'm saying. Here's the thing. Here's what I've learned. Even me, I spent a lot of money on leases and land. You know what I've learned you can do to anybody that let you do? Anybody? You want to gain some experience that's fun that I do, and I've killed from 190s to, I'm not lying, I bet I got 17 160s down there, and I'm not bragging on it, that ain't even mounted. I still want to kill another one. But you know what I found out anybody let you do when the season goes out? Anybody let you go squirrel hunt with dogs. Anybody let you trap their property. Matter of fact, most of these high dollars places will pay you to go trap. But we don't want a coyote. We want a 200-inch deer.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn in my experience, I had to go re-engage and find me some new experiences. Now squirrel hunting and coyote hunting are probably more fun to me than deer hunting. I know people think I'm lying, but I love it. I love it. I got 15 traps I got to go check here in a minute. And my neighbor just called me and said, man, you've been catching coyotes. Can you come trap my place? I said, shoot, yeah, I'll come trap. He said, as a matter of fact, tell you what I do. Traps are expensive. I said, you go buy me a dozen traps, let me wax and dye them, and I'll run them on through your property because I can access it through mine. And so I love it. Me and my boy get up every morning. We'll go check in traps, and you would think we're going to see a 180 when we come around the corner. So I think we have to rediscover.
Yeah.
What we like Gamo squirrel hunt, we're trying to realize how fun it is. And I can promise you, because I know, Jared and Jeremy, I know how competitive y'all are at heart in business. You look at Jared over there, he looked like he could jump in the damn wrestling ring and whoop anybody. Joker stays a little time in the gym. I could take y'all to Squirrel Master Classic. Let me tell you something. Y'all going to be on my team because y'all going to be like Rambo. We're going to be trying to win that little sculpted squirrel trophy with pellet rifles. And Jared, I definitely want Jared, because I get him climb to the tree and catch him by the tail, throw him out.
That's it.
It's the fun thing ever. And there ain't nothing we do to score them. So the experiences are there. We just have to go back and capture it. And I think the trophy thing is starting to lose a little bit of the luster. It's becoming a little depressing.
Absolutely.
Overall opinion, and I think it's because of those elements a little bit, Jared, is because the guy that used to only be that guy before the technology that could kill him, now everybody's got the opportunity.
Absolutely.
They're good. And so what's happening is everybody's doing it. So guess what? Nobody's freaking out about the 200-inch deer. And what's happened, even these industry people are showing up like, dude, I killed a 200-inch deer. I'm about to get the contract now.
Nobody
I
cares.
ain't gonna pay Stone. They're gonna pay me.
Yeah.
They're gonna pay me. And then we're like, oh, nice.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Nobody cares, bro.
It's nuts. Well, you talked about taking Waylon out. So how old's Waylon now? 8, 9, something like that?
He's 7 now.
Okay. So Harlan just turned 8, my youngest. And so my big fear, and Jared and I've talked about this, dude, growing up, like, man, hunting was a grind. Like, I mean, I spring gobbler hunted, I deer hunted. I mean, I've covered ground, and I mean, success was limited, right? But that's what drove me to why I love it today. My fear with Harlan, who just turned 8, when I got him started was, with all the distractions, it's like, man, I got to give him a little success, but how do I also make him earn it? Like the doe I shot last night, I went back to the house. I said, get dressed. You're coming out. You track this doe for me. And I made him, I knew where the doe was. I made him track it just because, like, you don't get those experiences all the time. Like, it's a learning thing. But my fear with new hunters and kids, especially with all the technologies, is like, man, if I want to If I want to go out to Ohio, put him in a box blind with a corn pile and a crossbow in October, he's going to kill a deer. Like, I mean, or at least he's going to get a shot at it.
Yeah, I think what's happened is too, again, a lot of it ain't the evolution of just hunting. It's the evolution of life. It's kind of like, to be honest, it's kind of like movie night. Man, you know how excited we used to all get around? I'm sure y'all did too, build a fire and watch a movie. We can't do it because there's so many distractions. Everybody's watching YouTube and social media. And however, I still do believe that every one of us, it's okay to be easy at the beginning because we all started hitting a baseball off a tee.
Yep.
But I think as parents, we have to somehow plant the seed just a little bit, make it easy. Every kid can figure out and hit it off the tee. Next thing you know, if you're Chipper Jones, you're hitting a freaking 100-mile-an-hour fastball off Nolan and Ryan and getting paid to do it. That same opportunity in Lane is available in the hunting industry. But you're right. There's a very fine balance of how you do it. And I think you just have to step them through the processes correctly and let them have some fun, easy experiences. And it's okay to stay warm and dry, whether it's your lady, whether it's your kid. But I do think you just got to pray and hope that if you put this little seed, that it'll grow and blossom. If it don't, you can't get too depressed. It might not, because there is still things, like these kids get caught up in gaming. And be honest, man, I probably could start right now and never could do what they do on games. I mean, it takes some discipline, and it's a game, but it does take a little work. It's weird to understand the codes and how to win. So hunting kind of has got the same thing, but the indoors is winning over the outdoors. And so if you go out there and just throw them in a cold tree stand and they don't get nothing, well, you lost all. They ain't going
exactly.
Back. You expect a lady. If you got a lady, a girlfriend you date, and you want to take her out there and throw her in a tree, I know there's a lot of women hunters that beat their chest and act like they're going to die crossing the river, but they don't do it. They don't. I mean, they might be a few. Melissa Bachman, yeah, she'll whoop us all, man. She's tough and she's a hardcore lady hunter, but that's an exception. That ain't the rule. I think most everybody too got a false facade of how tough and ready they want to go, and it's almost like it's a little bit of self-glorification of what you think you would. I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you got a giant bull that you see is a 350 bull screaming at the bottom of the mountain, but yet you in shape and you ready to run to the top, are you going to stop and kill this one right here if he'll come to the first cow call? Or are you like, nah, that'd be too easy. I'm going to run to the top. You're a good hunter and you're smart. You're not going to hunt dumb. You'll hunt, but you're willing and ready to go to the top. But why are you willing to go to the top? Because you know what the experience entails. And so, man, it is such a deep psychologically rooted thing to figure out how to win, guys. I don't know. I will say, I'm a little bit I wouldn't say fatalistic, so I don't want to sound like Elon Musk when he's talking to Rogan, but I do think the win is going to be for the new people coming into it, how we present it to them. It's going to be tougher for us in the club. The club hunters is the ones that's the most down, the ones that grew up, the ones that's searching for more, the ones that now we have this technology and it's somewhat depressed us. It's depressed me too, man. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God. Are you kidding me? And I love it. I work with Bushnell and they're amazing trail cameras, but even turkey season, I'm sitting around camping. All of a sudden I get a picture of a gobbler strutting.
Yep.
I'm supposed to do. I like kill turkeys. I'm like, man, I know we watching this NASCAR race, but Jeremy, come on here, man. Yeah. Look at this joker right here in plot 7.
We know we can go kill him. Yeah, we know we can go kill him.
And so it's like, this is stupid. It's like, you sitting in Illinois and they tell you sitting out there with that Hoyt and you got a big buck coming out there at 80 yards every day. You don't feel quite good enough, even with the rangefinders. Like, I could take this Raven crossbow and freaking dusted.
Yeah.
Oh God. Dude. So it's hard, especially when you start adding in those elements, Jerry, like we were talking about man, I don't even know if I'm gonna have this place next year. Yeah. This guy's offered him double what I'm paying. I know. I don't even know. So it pulls you out of your stance to a degree because so I don't know, man. I don't know if there's one answer. All I would tell people is to remember to have fun. If it's becoming non-fun, whether it's chasing a big deer or killing a little one, you need to look and change. One thing T-Bone will tell you, if you're struggling shooting your bow, it's target panic or whatever, you know what he'll tell you, or Levi Morgan, he'll say, hey man, change something in that setup, change your release. Are you shooting a wrist? maybe get a handheld, change your mechanics, do this, do that, change something. So I will say, if you start getting into this rut, step away from it and come back and say, you know what, I'm just going to step away, man. I didn't got consumed. Matter of fact, even my girlfriend or wife has told me I've become a jerk, that all I do is look at my trail cameras and all I do is talk about big deer. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you become one of these people that you hate and you're making a negative comment. Must be easy, having a farm deer with 37,000 trail cameras. And you realize, oh my God, guess what? I got a farm and I got 37 cameras. I just didn't kill one this year. It's like, oh my God. So, I think the answer is, man, stay true to yourself. And if you catch yourself not enjoying it, you better step away from it. And I've caught myself doing that a lot of times and then take a new angle. And so now, for me, my newest love that I have loved, I have so much love getting new people who don't even look at it like I do. They're just, we killed that turkey with Caleb and Theo. All they wanted to do was get back and cook him right then. It was like, can we cook him? Can we eat him today? I'm like, we'll eat him right when we get back if you want to. It was like Boy Scouts, and I thought, man, none of my hardcore hunting buddies is this way anymore. It's almost like, you remember when we was 10 or 11 going to build a fort by the creek?
That's it,
and
man.
If we could kill a squirrel with a 20 gauge and we'd get some tinfoil and wrap him up, put some Worcestershire sauce and eat him and have some soda crackers, and by God, we're living. Tastes like crap. Like I don't.
We had a blast, man.
Get back and Mama hopefully make you a bologna sandwich, but they got that. That experience to them is like us when we first did it. But I think we have evolved to where it's tough, man.
To the points earlier, man, I would say, like, I'm envious of that feeling. I'm searching, like, how do I find that again, man?
Well, so you're talking about like Blake's situation out there. Like, I'm envious of that. I want to be able to self-restrict. And what's keeping us from doing that is knowing that we're missing out. Because, and that's awesome. That's awesome. And if I was Blake, I would do the exact same thing. Jeremy and I've said many times, like, man, we should just not use these things. We should not use cell camera. We should not use bait piles. We should not use, crossbow, whatever it is, insert the blank there. But the reality is the resource is so able to be taken advantage of that we know, like, we're not dumb, right? And we love to deer hunt. As much as I would love to squirrel hunt and this other stuff, it's like, man, I don't know what it is. God has just put something in me. I am obsessed at the moment with hunting big deer. And I realize that, I've got opportunities that other people don't, and it's, and things are not fair. And I get it. And I acknowledge that. I want everybody's experience to be what they want for it to be. And so just where I struggle with all of that is, like, as much as I feel like, and people said that all the time, well, if you don't want to hunt with corn piles, then don't. I know that the reality is that I'm missing out.
You would have to curve your expectations of success.
I would have to curve my expectation. I would have to hunt.
Your experience may be better, but the expectation of success, like, you're not going to get rid of corn piles and cameras in Ohio and expect to kill big 5-year-old bucks when everybody else is doing it.
You're exactly right. That's the internal struggle that I think, like, the fork in the road we find ourselves at, Michael, is like, we can do one of two things. We can, at this point, decide to be happier with less. We can say, okay, this is what the experience is now, and we're gonna find a way to enjoy it, and that's great. That's really admirable, and maybe that's what we should do. The other is, and I think kind of where we're spending our time is having conversations about why it is going the way that it's going, and what steps we could take for it to be that way again. Like, if we could all go back to 2012 and say, man, deer hunting, we could have that again. And anybody could hunt the way that you wanted to hunt. This was like before the technology had evolved to the point where it was now. And like the resource was plentiful. Access was still very much available for everybody to be able to go, and for us to introduce new hunters, and man, there's places to go, and we can do it this way. And there's age class. If you want to do that, that's a thing. Those opportunities, because of this technology and how it's allowed to use in different states and stuff, is going away. And like, I'm young, right? I'm 30, and I love to hunt big, mature deer. And like, so I feel myself wanting to fight for that, not just for me, but for everybody. I want everybody, if that's something that they want to be able to experience pretty soon here, like in a matter of 5-10 years, you're not going to have a chance unless you own a piece of ground and you're using a corn pile with a crossbow, and you're taking absolutely advantage of every piece of technology. That opportunity won't exist. It will be dead and gone. It'll be a thing of the past.
It very well could be. And I think what you hit on, as we talk about Aaron and the hunting public guys, this is what has made it so romantic about what they do, that I respect those guys so much. Even though you're right, they kind of set themselves up in a lane. Mm-hmm. There's an example to where you're not as expecting as much out of that experience. Sure. You're expecting a lot out of the experience with your boys, with your friends.
I do admire that about those guys a lot. Definitely.
What happens is you strip it back down. Yes, they want to kill a big deer and they kill a few, but if you watch that series, they kill a lot of smaller deer and it's so fun. They're hunting again and they have recaptured that experience. I don't know Aaron and those guys, but I bet you they chase the same stuff. I bet you, and they probably still do have leases and they chase the desire to kill big deer. But I think that's what's happened. Like I use squirrel hunting as an example. It got me back because you're right. Jared, a lot of people just ain't gonna care about it. I didn't either. I've never been a dog man, but now I got my little dog.
You know what I'm talking about. I mean, dude, even with the turkey hunting, I sit here, I tried it. Believe me, I've turkey hunted, and I just, whatever it is in me, I'm a deer hunter. I just am. Right. And
that's
so
it is.
Yeah.
And me, I've kind of learned, and people either love it. Hey, the hell, I'm just a killer. I ain't over technical on anything. If there's a grasshopper season, I'd run around, stomp on them suckers. I just like to hunt something. Yeah. I like everything. Only thing I could care less about, I'm not a duck hunter. I've been to some amazing duck places, and I about wouldn't walk down to my driveway, shoot a duck hardly.
Your wallet's probably better off for it.
Yeah, and I just think, because that's a competitive space. Yeah, holy cow. But I do think here's a psychological test that I could say. And you just did this, Jared, on y'all's place. It sounds like in Ohio. But if I said, hey, boys, man, I got a problem. I got too many deer on my farm. I ain't been seeing a lot of big deer. Now, I got 4 deer that, my God, if y'all see them, man, just kill them. Or better yet, you know what? I don't care. I just want to kill as many deer as I can. As much as, say, Jared and Jeremy love to kill these big trophy deer. Mm-hmm. But I said, listen, come down. Once again, come down. Old Jackson's going to be around, and Lord knows the stories he's going to tell us. I mean, it's going to be, how full of crap old Boo Bishop. And we're going to sit around, and Ryan and Cohen, we're going to come over here. We ain't going to video. We just going to hang out for 3 days, and I want y'all to just kill whatever you want. I got some old 1.5-year-old deer that need killing. I just need some deer killing. All of a sudden, even though we like to kill trophy deer, that sounds pretty fun. Shoot, come down there to manage, do stuff, kill stuff. And we still might kill a big one. But then if I said, hey, I want y'all to come down here, but as soon as y'all get here, we're supporting having an orientation. And I show you a wall of deer before you go. Do not do this. Don't even look at this deer. If he comes out in food plot, I don't want you to make eye contact with him. It almost, I think we have made it so stressful that it ain't no fun.
That's it. Yeah.
And look, here's where I will say, the industry has promoted it, but it's in us. It's in us. We want it. Mm-hmm. And it drives us. It's maddening how it makes us feel. It's maddening how, if we can't either see this deer or kill this deer, or the neighbor kills this deer, or maybe the neighbor kills a little deer, it's changed. It really ain't anything other than our experiences. It led us to be addicted to the next experience. That's what we want.
Yeah.
It's turning your lights on in your house.
Yeah.
You. That's what you want. Let it be a blackout. You're going to freak out, man. That's why people without Wi-Fi, that's why the world can come to an end, not with a nuclear bomb, turn off the Wi-Fi. Yeah. So those of us who have been there, those of us that are addicted to trophy deer, like Jared, I'll be honest, you're in a tough spot, man. Yeah. You really are. I mean, and I'm not saying that even condescending. You're in a tough spot because your desire and your experience has become so to that experience that not much ever is going to quench that thirst. There's a certain flavor that's the only thing. And I think that's what happens. It becomes terrifying that, like, oh my God. And I'm there. I got a lot of things. Yep. So we share certain things, but that's why it makes it tough. And I will say hunting can be very depressing. Sure. It can drive us to do things that don't even make sense. It really can. And so, the only thing I can tell people, and this is broad stroke, is try to make it fun. And I think overall, it's like, I talked to Cameron Haynes the other day, and I'm working out some dates. I'm going to fly to Oregon and be on his podcast. And Cameron obviously is a fitness guy. And believe it or not, I got Swiss cake rolls on cupboard in there, and I still unhealthy and do things. It's fun things I do, but I am about the experience being enjoyable. There's certain things that I ain't gonna do because it just don't look fun. I don't think it'd be fun to run 30 miles. I ain't against somebody that does it. Somebody asked me, like, man, how you feel about this and that. Like, I ain't against nothing. I just don't want to do something that I think's fun.
Yeah.
I had a gay tell me one time, asked me if I was a homophobe. I said, no, it's just what you do don't seem fun to me. It don't seem fun. I mean, and so inevitably, I think people need to chase what they truly get a passion and enjoyment. And if it really is something that makes them feel a certain way, don't force people to do it. Talk about what it made you feel, and people will start chasing that you're getting out of it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a small buck, whether it's a squirrel hunt, whether it's a trophy buck, whether it's turkey hunting, whether it's hunting a primitive way, whether it's with a decoy, without a decoy. And I think that's where it is. So I think we all got to figure out a path. And I think we're too influenced. And I think it gets back down. Sometimes we're too insecure. I had a guy a couple years ago. I went down to the deer cooler, and the dude was bringing a deer to a cooler, and it was about 100-inch 8-pointer. And he says, "Hey, man." I said, "Man, congrats, you get that?" And he said, "Man, my girlfriend, killed that deer." And I'm like, "Well, that's weird. She didn't even get out. She's sitting in there." And I went over and told her congratulations. Well, she looked at me like I had two heads. Well, come to find out, he shot the deer, but he was embarrassed. And so he put it on her. Hell, I don't even think she had a hunt license. And I'm like, bro, what is wrong with you? Has the industry and society been that hard that you can't be proud? It was a nice 8-pointer. It was a young deer.
That's anyone, though, man. The first thing people say on social media is, not my biggest, but that's usually, I mean, how many deer posts do you see this fall that start with, he wasn't the biggest, but, or, something along that line where immediately there's like, just like a hidden asterisk to the deer. And it's like, why do you have to tell me that?
I know it is. It gets back to that celebrating success. Everybody, a trophy is relative to who pulls the trigger, but I've caught myself being a jerk. I've caught myself being kind of, my neighbors like, "Man, why'd y'all shoot that deer? Why?"
Same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God, and I hate that. I hate that for myself. And I went back and apologized, and I don't know, man. I mean, really, to be honest with you, a lot of that hadn't been top of mind, but y'all exactly right. I think it is and can be a problem. And I think it's up to us individually to take control over it, similar to a cell phone. I try my best between, say, 6:30 and 9 o'clock. I just lay my phone on the end table, and you can't get me. Not just that you can't get me. I don't want to do business at that point. I also don't want to have the urge to sit around and play on TikTok when Waylon just wants baseball. So I can't change technology. I can't make it go away. I can only try to step away from it here and there. And I probably am going to miss out on stuff. Think about it now. Here's what we get. How many times I'll be at a hunting show, and I know y'all get this too. People come up like, "Man, that was terrible. What happened to so-and-so?"
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't. First, I don't even know so-and-so. Mm-hmm. Well, it was all over Facebook. I'm like, oh, I didn't see it. And it's like, I don't think I saw it. So it's amazing how many people are living right here. Yeah. They're not even having this conversation. They dang sure ain't sitting around the fire. So I think we just got to learn to take more from the experience. And I think that we are, Jared, unfortunately, I think we're going to evolve to where we're going to always have a resource that's amazing, but I don't think it's going to be for everyone. And that's unfortunate, but I think that's fact, because I think it's going to be a money thing. I do. And that's unfortunate.
Well,
but everything is money. You don't need it.
And here's why, Michael. I mean, I think here's our diagnosis of it is like, and it gets misconstrued a lot. I know a lot of guys that hunt with crossbows think that we're against them, like we're against the way that they're doing, and it couldn't be further from the truth, right? I don't care. I could care less if guys shoot them with bazookas, or at some point they're going to make 50 cal mounted, thermal seeking drones like legal, right? Our fear is for the resource. What's happening? My diagnosis, I think it's our shared belief, but I mean, I think what's happening is the more that these things are allowed to happen, it's the state. There's no aggravation. There's no telling people how to do. There's no righteousness on my end or purity to say, I think you should be hunting with a vertical bow, or none of that. Absolutely none. Could care less. I think, and our frustration is directed towards the state. that's allowing it to continue to happen, because as that continues to happen, guys that have money that are driven to, and maybe it's because of the industry or whatever, they say, I want to kill a 200-inch deer. Josh Bomar, I'll use him as an example. He'll look around and say, oh, they're legalizing baiting or crossbows or XYZ in my state. I'm just going to buy up all the land to insulate myself from that bullshit because I want to kill big deer. And
they'll do it.
That is the reason that access is declining for everybody. And along with it, the opportunity to hunt the way we want to hunt. Dude, I don't know what the number is, but access has declined for just general, guys that want to go hunting by, dude, it's got to be 80%.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Absolutely.
It's gone. And it's because people with money see these things they're continue to be allowed, and like, man, all these guys are so effective with, these weapons and these tools that they can use. I'm just going to buy it all up. I'm going to buy it all up, and I'm going to hunt it for myself. And that's where we're at.
Actually, more accurate, Jared. The access is still there, but the access to experience you desire is not there. That's what's missing. There's still a place to hunt. There's still public ground. There's still some farmer that's got 15 acres that allow you. There's still that old hunting camp that you could get back in that you was in Pennsylvania, but you don't want none of that no more. We want that stuff, the same that Josh is wanting, the same that Lee and Tiffany is wanting, that they bought, that they figured out how to get, or maybe it's, some of these rich.
I don't know, Michael. It's gone. And I'm not just saying for me. I'm saying for anybody. Like, talk to just our friends and family guys. Like, I used to have access to, nobody cared. I could walk on so-and-so's property and this and that, and I just want to shoot a deer for the freezer. The access for those guys is gone because
it's been leased.
Because we leased it up. Or, anybody who's got money and is driven to do this and whatever their objective is, that's who's missing out, is like your blue collar, everyday guys that doesn't have the money to buy a piece of property or lease a piece of property. And I hate that those people are losing access. Those are the same people who will say, well, I don't have time to practice, and I only have one day to go out, so I shoot a crossbow. It gets twisted because I have no problem with the crossbow, and that's great. I want that guy to be able to hunt. I hate that because those crossbows are allowed, that causes this guy to buy up all the property, and now you don't have access. And so it's like we're really fighting for the guy that thinks that we're shaming them for the weapon that they're hunting with. And does that make sense?
Yeah. No, 100%. No, like I said, in my case, I'm always fighting for, the blue collar guy, because I feel like I'm the blue collar guy, but also through my, career and path, I've been in a place where I was finally able to afford a tract of land. Like I said, I have access to this, but it come with millions of dollars.
Yep.
I paid millions of dollars to have it. I can choose to lease it back out or allow whoever to want and come and hunt. So it's hard, but I think that might even go deeper than just hunting. I think that's the problem with
it does.
A lot of things, and I do think still it gets to the place that it is more depressing for those who have had that experience that has a step away from it than those that's never experienced it. Like, I remember I heard somebody talking about skateboarding. Like, man, you could take a skateboard. You could skate anywhere. You go to shopping mall and you can't even go skate no more. People kick you out. Plus, there's homeless everywhere in LA no more. I was talking to some dude the other day that was, he was my age, but he used to be, hit the pipe, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, there's ain't no access anymore, and I'm like, and it hit me. I thought, oh my God, this is kind of like they built these public skate parks you can go, but used to, you could just go down to the supermarket. Now you got security guard. Get out of here. Because why? Because they don't want to get sued. Now a kid breaks his neck on the curb. It's like, well, they get sued, and Publix get sued for some kid breaking his neck.
There is a big part of that. Leasing is not the only, and buying is not the only reason that access is declining. Liability is a big part of it, and it's just like
especially in today's society.
It's a societal change.
You spill coffee on yourself, and you sue whoever you want to. I think a lot of those guys who used to hunt permission ground, like back when I was growing up, when I started hunting, man, there were 15 different farms I could go to. I didn't even have to call the landowner. I just knew that he didn't care that I was hunting there, right? He just knew in the past I had hunted. I think a lot of those guys who got displaced from those farms who are now forced to be on public, the experience is just tanked, right? It used to be maybe there were 2 or 3 other guys that hunted that farm that I would pass by and see. Now, I go in and there's 40 guys on the same place opening day at gun season, and it's just that experience is so bad that it's sad, but they're willing to quit hunting because
they're residents. I mean, that's what's I mean, if you can literally, that's not just metaphorical what we're talking about here. And Jeremy and I are part of the problem, right? All of us are, that have leased or bought land. It's like, so in Kansas is where we've seen it the most. We've hunted leases that we have out there, and we've hunted public a lot. And over the years, call it the past 6 years, we used to have a pretty good experience on public land in southeast Kansas.
Yep.
We had opportunities at big bucks, and we didn't run into a lot of guys. It was what we were looking for. That's why we drove 16 hours across the country. Over time, I'm going to say it's primarily non-residents. I think there's counties like in Unit 11 where it's predominantly, like as much as 80% is owned by non-residents. Because of the hunting experiences, the dirt that's there, the bucks that are, the age class that's able to be grown. And as that happens, the residents that used to have permission, just, hey, from my neighbor, and I used to, I hunted this whole place growing up, they've lost that access. The landowner's making money off non-residents, and so those people still want to hunt, so they go to public. And now you have a clashing of like non-residents that can't afford land, or or whatever their situation is, they're going to hunt public land, and the residents, they got displaced by everybody that leased or bought land, and so now your public lands are just completely overridden. And so the access has gone on private because it was all bought or leased, and the access or the access on public sucks because that's where everybody else pulls into.
Yeah, I think that's reality. That ain't a perception. That is reality.
That's reality. Yeah.
Happening. I've seen it. I've experienced it. And used to too. Like a lot of people don't think about it, but like Realtree in those days, a lot of those big deer that we were killing in Iowa was on public ground. All the elk were on public. All of my big elk could come from public ground. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But man, we were almost secret squirreling. We weren't going to tell you the unit and tell you that it was out there. We had the opportunity. Now people, because of that lane, are promoting that. Oh, you can do this kind of for the self-glorification. Look at me, I killed a big public land deer. But guess what? People realize that now.
Well, and Michael, it's not just
was fine. Or Greg Miller was fine saying, that's fine. They think I'm killing a farm deer. I'm not going to tell them that they could come hunt this too. It's right. Like it was a little switch, but
and it's not just the promotion either. I mean, here's one we haven't thrown out there, dude. A tool, Onyx, inherently an awesome tool. Like it is so cool to be able to see where landowner lines are at and stuff. But like, what other than cell cameras and trail cameras has shined a light on like the very last corners of access? As online mapping software, so people say, well, oh, I can go here, I can go here, I can go here. Now, there's nothing left. There's no unturned access, places that I could go hunt. It's like between cell cameras covering thousands of acres and mapping software, and it's because we're talking about it on a show here, it's promoted to me that I can go and do this. It's like, boy, we're running out of frontier, and it's...
Well, that's why I asked Michael, when you were growing up, and same with me, like I never hunted out of the state of Pennsylvania. I didn't even... Like, unless I got a North American whitetail, or I didn't even know big bucks existed in Illinois and Iowa and stuff, right? Or I watched TNN, whatever. And so it wasn't until, I don't know, probably after college was my first time hunting out of state. I think I might have went to Kansas.
I mean,
and it was like, I didn't even know you could do that stuff growing up.
Right.
I'm going to say the reason, probably one of the most, the reason I was the most excited to go to Kansas in my mind was that 190 that you killed walking through that fence gap in Kansas. And I saw that TV show, and I just, that was on repeat. I'm like, I'm going to go live that experience in Kansas.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that was my biggest deer. It was like 192 or 3. And I didn't mount that deer on purpose just to remind me that it don't matter. I'm like, you can come right now and pick that rack up. It's just sitting on the coffee table down, and, crazy psychology.
I've held it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you did. And so anyway, it kind of helped me understand on the same kind of, because I'm 100% in agreement with this narrative, and I don't know how to stop it or change it. But I never had killed a giant deer. I'd killed a lot of good deer. I'd never killed something over 190, but I didn't. And I realized I wasn't until I bought it. That was the first piece of land I had bought. And I was leveraged. I didn't have the money. I was leveraged so hard buying that land. But I realized for me to experience something that I'm seeking an experience, I've got to get out of my element. Yeah. So I can't be. I got to do one or two things. And I think that's where so many of us are. you got to either change your experience or you just got to jump in there with the Joneses and start competing with them. And that's kind of what we do in society.
Right.
These young, they get married. Next thing you know, it's like, well, I got to have that house and that neighborhood, and I got to have that expedition and that Tahoe. And next thing you know, so we can all insulate ourselves, but it's so hard not to covet and to chase an experience that we want of a goal. But we have to be careful because it'll lead to such depression. And I think that's what we experienced in our hunting industry. We're kind of, like me. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of over the trophy deal, even though I still practice it. I'm almost wishing that somebody would just say it's illegal to chase trophies anymore.
Yeah.
I don't like laws that ban anything. I think but I'm just over it. I don't care. I'm not impressed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. I don't think it's nothing to not be respected because it takes a lot of effort. It's just, I think that I have more of my friends that have more anxiety because they love it.
Definitely.
And they have excitement.
Well, dude,
I've seen it.
money can buy it. Now, like if I had unlimited funds and I could go buy a governor tag from the state of Iowa and buy a giant piece of ground in the state of Iowa, I could kill a Boone and Crockett deer, or at least have the opportunity to kill a Boone and Crockett deer every year. Well, with money. You need some skill, but you don't need that much skill. You need a tag and a bunch of land and keep everybody out of it, and you'll have a chance.
At this point, with the resources we have, like the tools we can use while hunting, the only thing you need to have to kill a 200-inch deer is to own the land that it lives on. That's it. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Oh, dude, it's almost fall. You and I are both going to be in a tree stand with brand new Hoyt bows. We're going to be shooting the RX-7 carbon bow this year. I know Hoyt's also got the Venoms out, both equally smooth shooting, quiet bows.
Heck yeah, man. And we got a convert on our hands this year. We got a lifelong crossbow guy with a vertical bow in his hands for maybe the first time ever, a good friend of mine. And we've got them all decked out with the inline accessories from the QAD integrated Ultra Rest to the quiver. And also he's got the SL sidebar mount with a couple of stabilizers from Hoyt as well. So that's going to be a sick shooting bow.
Yeah, and Hoyt's been cool enough that anyone listening to this can save 20% on any of the soft good apparels online using the code HUNTR, HUNTR, no E. And if you want to look at the latest lineup of Hoyt bows, check out your local Hoyt dealer.
Get serious? Get Hoyt.
It's funny. I might, people might like it and they might hate me for saying it, but I'll be honest with you. We give these wild goats, which are deer, we give them freaking feelings. We give them humane type experiences. You would think these suckers could read an Einstein novel and make a bomb. They ain't that smart. They're horny and hungry. I mean, they got good instincts, but they're not that difficult to kill. And especially in the states that you hunt them. And if you do certain things and you set your farms up the certain ways, you can set them up to be killed. They will make mistakes. It takes money, time, and energy to do that. It's hard to get that experience going in your favor if you don't have the time and money or the access, period. Take public. What makes public deer hunting? Is it any different? Is that deer wired or a different breed than the deer that lives on Lakoski's? No, it's just that you have no way to strategically control the situation, because me and Jared might have walked right through there just before that smoking Marlboros hunting squirrels, just before you trying to kill a known 180 because of your technology. You can't control that experience. I can control that experience outside of a coyote or a bobcat or something running through or something on my property. I know nobody else is hunting it unless they're trespassing. So you're right. A lot of these things are out of our control. And so it is hard to figure it out. What I will say, I would sum it up with this. And it took me to my age to get to this understanding. Now, it's easy for me to say this, maybe a little selfish for me to say this, because I've been there, man. I've killed so many nice quality bucks, man, all over the spectrum. Animals, big, like, a lot of people don't realize, but probably my biggest animals I've shot has been elk in public ground. I've killed, I think 25, 27 elk with my bow and arrow. Most of them been public, and I love it. Guess what it's similar to? It's like turkey hunting. So obviously if I'm pretty good at turkey hunting, you just got to trick their nose. You can kill a big elk. It's still my favorite thing to do is chase big elk with a bow and arrow. But the way kind of show our shows, nobody thinks about us as these big trophy deer killing. But if you go back and really look, and I take you in the trophy room or niche, you're like, Jesus, they've killed some big deer. Yeah. Well, you know that about Lee Koski. You know that about Tiffany. You know that about Drew's, because that's what's up front. We don't put that up front, but we certainly desire it. But what I have learned, none of those animals mean nothing outside of the experience. And so I know more people right now with trophy rooms that are magnificent, with huge animals that are lonely and dusty, and all they got is the guy who killed it that can sit back and have a cocktail, smoke a cigar. Nobody wants to be in there with him. All he's got is these dead animals. The trophies are what me and you and us experience through the good and the bad, whether squirrel, big deer, little deer, Pennsylvania, lease land here in Georgia, little Georgia power lease, mead lease, the deer chili. At the end of it, if we can't get back to that, give up, because honestly, nobody else cares. And the rich guy can go buy your place. The rich guy can outbid you. The rich guy, the reason I don't get too hung up on the baiting or non-baiting is because, once again, it's money. What you gonna do if you over there by Lee Koski? You think he's worried about trying to pour extra bag of feed? It ain't gonna matter if it's legal or non-legal. He can outplant you, man. He's going to have 20 acres of beans he ain't even going to harvest. 20 acres. Go plant 20 acres of Roundup Ready beans. Go plant you about 100 acres of corn. And by the way, do you got the money to have that kind of tractor to plant that kind of corn? Go compete with the Drurys. Go compete with Jimmy John. You're going to lose. So the only man that can a little bit get into ball game, this is why I ain't against baiting, is the poor old broke guy over there. At least he can go buy $10 bag of corn, and maybe one of them corn. So I just eat it out of the pile, so the food plot, if it's legal. So either way, you're gonna lose. The rich guy's still gonna outbait you. He's gonna outplant you. He's gonna outdo you. He's gonna have the ducks. He's gonna have everything. As a matter of fact, there's a lot to be learned by these biologists, by these rich landowners, because a lot of times they know more. Because guess what? You give somebody who's won in life, that's made millions and hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, if they like turkey hunting, you watch and see, give them 5 years to see if they won't have as many turkey on their land as anybody.
Yeah.
They ain't going to call a biologist. They're going to call every hardcore redneck over there and says, hey, what do I need to have more turkeys? They're going to say, well, you need to trap, you need to do this habitat. They're going to hire those guys. And next thing you know, you go hunting on their places and you're going to have it.
Yep.
They're going to have more than anything. And because they succeed in everything they do. So it's kind of a tough situation to be in, to be honest. It's like, I don't know how you win other than to dial back and say, what am I truly chasing? Am I chasing an experience that creates memories for a lifetime? Or am I chasing something now that's bringing more pain than joy? And I think that's the depression that a lot of the younger hunters in. I think that's what spurs the controversy of how you hunt. I think it's what, especially in the turkey world of reaping versus non-reaping, it's like, well, in reality, it don't matter, because guess what? Everybody's still striving to kill that turkey, but they're saying, well, I could have killed it if it had still been there. I could have killed it my way if you hadn't killed it the way I didn't see. So it's still a greed.
Yeah,
we're fueled by our greed of this experience. And it's hard to share that with the poor guy, the rich guy, the baiter, the non-baiter, the crossbow hunting, or the vertical bow. So in reality, it's hard to manage it, because we are driven for that experience. We're driven for that. And it's so hard not to covet that experience and covet those that are getting that experience. And that's where a lot of the frustration and hatred comes. And I understand it. The reason I understand it, because I know that if those guys had access and had these resources, they could accomplish the same thing as most people do. So therefore, what do? I think you got to sell on to a degree and find something. I don't think you give up, but you just got to come to reality that maybe I've got to figure out a way to.
Well, yeah, I mean, the manifestation on our end of that is like, we were struggling in Ohio, and in our mind, it's because it's a bait state. And we have access to a lot of acres. I mean, family ground and stuff. It should be prime stuff, to achieve our goal, which is to kill mature buck, regardless of, their antler size. And we were struggling to do that, still are. Our answer to that was, and maybe it's not as black and white as like, well, okay, just, be okay with a different experience or what. We went out and bought a farm in Illinois. You know, we looked at a state, where can we go as non-residents every year that is not a bait state? I mean, that's one of the main things that took us out there. I think another manifestation of that is it takes 6 years to draw the best county in Iowa, you know, which is where most of the deer are. That's because, in my opinion, of all these other decreased experiences across the entire country. You know, Missouri's got gun seasons during their rut, as does Indiana. Ohio and Kentucky and stuff have, bait. And these are the things I think are, because of all the things we've talked about, it causes the experience to be limited in those areas. So guys that are still seeking, you know, what they want out of the experience, which is I want to kill a big mature buck. There's only a small handful of places you can still go and do it consistently. So that's,
I think that's it. So think about that. Your experience that you're chasing ain't the same experience somebody else is chasing, and that's where we get misconstrued. You know, even talking about Iowa and bait, non-bait. Well, everybody's hunting over bait in some form or fashion. Yep. You got to find it. I mean, does it make it easier and obtainable if you can pour it out of a bag? Yeah, anybody can do that. Yeah. But absolutely, you're going to go to Iowa and you're going to plant some pretty massive food plots and have green fields. It's going to be a source of bait. If you can farm it, you can have bait. But inevitably, that's just it. Everybody ain't chasing the same experience. Definitely. And that's where things get depressing, and that's where it does. Because I know a lot of people, man, I got my neighbor over here, man, he's downright pretty depressed right now because he's bought 800 acres and he's not seeing the deer he wants. And I started laughing. I said, buddy, you down and out, man. And man, so-and-so over there killed this and that. And I said, bro, you done wasted a lot of money for misery.
Yeah.
I said, drink, go ride these pit bikes. And so that's, the problem ain't what people are chasing in their experience. The problem is everybody's experiences don't match yours or mine.
Definitely.
That's the problem. And so we're driven to want to force people to want to do it our way. And unfortunately, if you want it your way, you got to figure out how to get enough resources to insulate yourself to a degree. Yeah. And that's hard to do. It's kind of like one of them old dudes out there in California, you know, them celebrities, they buy them big old mansions and put all them gates and get a little old security guard sitting out there because they don't want nobody rolling up on them.
Yeah.
That's why. So if you're there, you're going to spend more time angry than you're going to be happy. And then when you do kill it, you thought, my God, man, was it even worth it? Right. Was it even worth it? You can't make love to it. Your wife ain't going to give you no more. She's still pissed at you and still thinks you're crazy because that's all you want to do, you know. And so I think it's a balance. I think that is what it is. It's a balance because, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know how to fix it. There is no fixing it. That's the thing. If you think you're gonna fix it, you ain't gonna fix it. That's what I know because what I do know, Jared, your desire, Nick Munt, for instance, man, Nick was going crazy out at Blake's because Blake didn't run trail camera. He was trying to go behind him and put trail cameras because he knows Blake's got some 200-inch deer out there. He was freaking out. And finally, me and Nick, I said, Nick, for Christ's sakes, just go hunt and have fun. Is it going to hurt you to go kill a mature deer that we don't know? Well, dude, I don't know what's out there. I'm telling you, there's a two. I said, if you kill it, what's it going to change? If you kill it, what's it going to change? I don't care. Blake don't care. Only you care. Bro, just get with the system. Just drink a cocktail. Go down to the Barmageddon bar that Blake did after the deal. Gwen's going to come by and cook some Italian food. Let's have fun. Who gives a shit, man? That's me and Nick arguing about this. Mm-hmm. Quit worrying about what the biggest deer here is. What does it matter? It only matters to you at this point. Are we happy if you kill it? So it's really us. Jared, really, the more we think about it, it's not one thing. It's us and our experience and our desires. And it becomes, we get so constricted as to what we want. And that 200-inch deer that was your lifelong dream could have been this kid's lifelong dream that killed the same deer that matured at 6.5, that killed it when he was 100 inches at 2.
Yeah.
Who's wrong? Were you right? Is the kid right? Or is this guy, this grown man that's working who had to go to Applebee's and go to every dance recital and every T-ball game, finally get a chance to go kill a turkey out of a blind, you know, when the Godfather's mad at him because he did it out of a blind with a decoy? Well, who deserved it more? The Godfather, who lived in mom's basement, who ride around and, you know, hunts every state and just says he don't tell anybody where he's at, but kills 10 or 15 turkeys a year for this man who killed him out of a blind, who's right, who's wrong? Really, none of us. So, this dude ain't mad that shot him out of the blind. He ain't mad. He ain't mad at the Godfather, but the Godfather sure is mad at him. I've learned to see the reality of it because I'm spoiled. I realize how spoiled and blessed I was, and I have to step away from it, and I have to go back to Booger Bottom. People, when I talk about Booger Bottom, I don't talk about that because I'm tough. I'm from Booger Bottom. I'm from this old country ass place. I am. I do it to remind myself so I never lose my roots. We can lose and we can forget our roots and our blind ambition. We can forget that we grew up hunting a mead lease. We can forget that we grew up in central Pennsylvania when, by God, you could see more orange vests than you ever thought about seeing deer on a ridge line.
Yep.
And if you heard turkeys gobble, there was 10 hunters chasing them, and you really didn't have to call them, had a better chance of a turkey drive running and by you. So I don't think there's no win. I think we just have to understand the reality of it and just keep fighting for that insulation. And unfortunately, that's not a fun place to be because inevitably, I think in the end, if your only desire is just to kill the biggest, highest scoring mature deer, I think inevitably, unless you're the Drurys or Lakoskis, you're gonna end up depressed.
Yeah,
I do think that, and I'm not saying fun to anybody, but I think in the end you will end up depressed because you're eventually gonna outpunch your coverage, and you're eventually going to find that you don't enjoy it like you think you do, and you're eventually going to look up and say, "What is this?" And the experience is going to be tainted unless you are insulated at the point of having that experience survive. But that's a hard goal. So therefore, that's what I would challenge everybody to venture out, do different things. I had to, because I got caught up in it. That's why I got into, get me some squirrel dogs. That's why I got into trapping, because I realized I got to change it. I was getting depressed on the land here in Georgia, catching myself getting mad that I can't kill a deer over just 153. I killed a deer last year. It was 153 with my bow and arrow, and I was like, no, why can't I grow a 160 here in Georgia? And then it's like, I'm thinking to myself, like, my God, Waddell, you're so spoiled. Are you kidding me? And I was up in Illinois, up there hunting on some of Jimmy John's stuff. And I run to a guy at a sporting goods store. He pulled out his camera. He lives there, and he was showing me the deer on his trail camera. And he's like, man, I've been trying to chase up with it. The biggest one he showed me was like 135 inches, and he looked like a 3-year-old deer. And that particular morning, I had just let a 5.5-year-old 173 or 5. We was arguing about if he was 170 to 175, but Jimmy had asked me to let him walk because he was only 5. Only 5? It wasn't. How many years ago, if mature deer was 4? Now he's wanting that deer to get 6 or 7.
Yep.
So I'm like, where do we stop?
Yeah.
Where do we stop? And so it's such an odd conundrum that I don't know how to fix. And nobody's really right and nobody's really wrong. And now, like you said, Jerry, we have all this technology that helps us, but does it really help us or does it take us backwards? And so I think inevitably it's maddening. So I'm on your side, I'm on the other guy's side, I'm on everybody's side, and you're right in this, Jerry. And Jeremy, I think we're all on that same team. I just had to take a step back, and now the camps I go to around the people I want to be around, I like the bullshit. I like to laugh. I like to cut a joke. I like to be around. I like to be around guys that I can call fathead and lobberhead and cut up and play pranks and have a good time, have a cold cooler of beer and some good food, and knowing that, hey guys, what do we want to do in the morning? And who's going to the boat seat? Y'all want to go over there? And like I'm telling you, there's a big old 130-inch mature deer. That sucker's there every day. You want some of that joker, Jeremy? You want to hunt him? And then be around people that just want to have fun. But there's some of my buddies that they only want to hunt with me if they're going to the Navajo where they feel like they can kill a 400-inch bull. I got those spots. They don't want to go to my Utah spot where I say, hey man, might kill a 260, 280. They don't really want to come up my Georgia spot, but they want to come up my Kansas spot.
Right.
And so they're not wrong. They're not wrong. So I don't know how to balance it. So I'm rambling. And
no, man, that's a good conversation to have. I mean, it's important. It's part of why we do this podcast, right? Because everybody's got opinions, and I think these kind of conversations are happening all across the country at deer camps, at family gatherings, at whatever. It's just in small groups, right? So the reason we try to have these conversations is so that we can get that out there and let people know that they're not the only ones that are having these thoughts and these questions. And can we answer them? Not necessarily. We don't know. But the only way that we're at least going to talk them out is to have these discussions and lay it out there.
Yeah, I've seen this coming for a long time, and I remember the first year I did road trips, I killed a lot of nice deer and elk, and man, I'd went Realtree and we had a little graphic. I had printed off. That was back in the slide days,
Oh yeah,
and I had slides printed off of me in this little book, and every time I'd sit down with somebody's working road trips, or I run into my buddies like y'all, I'd bust out my book like, look what I killed, look what I killed. And I did that for 2 years. And from here on out, I've not ever, I can honestly mean this, I've never pulled out even my phone to show one dead deer or anything anymore at ATA or shot or anything. Now, some people say, hey, man, you got a picture of that deer. I saw an episode, because I realized that it don't matter. I know it sounds crazy. It only mattered to me. And then I also realized, who am I to sit here and try to compete with somebody else? Because I got to do it all year. So
no,
I just quit. I just quickly tried to become the guy that just said, hey, I want to see your pictures, and you know what? I'm gonna buy a round of beer for the whole bar tonight, because I know everybody's got mixed emotions about how they feel about everything, and it is what it is. I don't know how to escape it, but I do inevitably. I just want people to figure out a way to enjoy it, whether it's big or little. But when you simplify it, you got a lot better chance of enjoying something, and especially life. Remember that book that was so popular? It said big things don't matter, or the small things something, and the big things don't matter, but they're all small things. I can't even figure out the book, but in reality, I've learned that if you just simplify it, I'm like Augustus McRae. Remember when he was talking to old Laura Darling down by the creek? He said, hey, every once in a while, good things in life come with a cold glass of buttermilk and a nice sip of whiskey in the evening, and a feisty gentleman like myself. He was telling Laura, I take that approach to life. Sometimes it results in a 200-inch deer. Sometimes it's just killing 3 or 4 deer on Jared's lease in Ohio, or the family ground, and cutting it up and making backstrap. And sometimes through the process, maybe of dabbling into some of this technology, you can chase down and catch one of these old vampires that score 180 inches and stick him with your bow at 40 yards. And it's something to be proud of. I just want people to kind of enjoy their lane, but unfortunately, depending on what lane you pick, that lane is harder to obtain.
Sure.
It's almost like you might want a fast car and you might desire a Ferrari, but if you've had them, and I think that's what's happened. A lot of us have had these Ferraris at our disposal, only realize we can't drive them no more. And it'd be like I say, you take away Wi-Fi now. And I think a lot of these things were easy to obtain. You're right. In the 90s, I remember when I was a kid, you could go hunt anywhere you wanted. Matter of fact, the only way you'd get kicked out is to tell the farmer that you let a deer walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
You let a deer walk. You tell them you let a young deer walk. I told him once. I told a guy, Mr. Jones let me hunt in Illinois, around Vina, in Illinois, right on that southern Kentucky line. And a guy gave me permission. I went in there and hunted, and I'd been hunting 2 evenings. And he said, what you been seeing, boy? You got anything? And I said, no, sir. I said, I saw a really nice 8-pointer yesterday. And I said, and I let him walk. And I said, he just wasn't that big. And I was thinking I would get some kind of, I don't know what praise or really nothing. He said, you been seeing deer and letting them walk? I said, yes, sir. I said, I only can kill 1 buck. And his exact words said, I don't care what the state. He said, I didn't let no stranger from Georgia come up here to let my deer walk. They're eating my corn and beans. If you ain't gonna kill no deer, you can go on somebody else's place and hunt. Oh my God. And I realized right there, now I didn't go out there and start doing that. It was illegal, but I realized right then and there that
he wanted you to kill everything, man.
He didn't care if I killed a big deer. He was thinking I was going to come in with a bow and arrow with 3 or 4 of my old buddies, and we were just going to kill 15 or 20 deer.
Yep.
He didn't about no state or tags. He just thought, y'all here to hunt, get after it, kill them.
Yep.
He was thinking But if I told a coon hunter to come hunt coons on my property with dogs, I ain't here to let you run through my property. I'm here because I want you to kill 15, 20 coons. Yeah. So anyway.
Crazy, man. Well, dude, we appreciate it. We know it took up a bunch of your time this morning into this afternoon, even at this point. And man, great discussions to have. And, you know, like I said, long time coming to have you on here and talking about it. But I'm glad we had these kind of discussions here at the end, because I think they are important for people to hear. And like I said, it's not like there's a right or wrong answer on it. Ultimately, though, I think people were having these discussions, and I think it feels good when people hear this to say, oh, hell, I'm not the only one thinking about this. I'm not the only one talking about this.
We none of us have escaped it. Like I said, and even though it sounds like I got it figured out, you know, and I'm definitely don't want Jared to think I'm picking him out and tell him he's wrong. I'm saying that because I'm 50 and I was right there, and I still struggle with it. It's similar to it's similar to being an alcoholic and learning to get away from it and learning to go back to life without it. And so I'm not telling people, or Jared or any one of us, that you have to enjoy life without ever the place to know when you got a 200 incher on your property. I'm just saying you have to balance it and bring it back to reality. And I say this with all sincerity. My relationship with y'all and what we could do together and achieve success means more to me than maybe my personal success on maybe big deer or elk. But I say that because, as we talked to, you know, I've been hunting in this industry a long time. I started when I was young, so I've had a chance to do a lot of it. So there's a certain bit of my bloodthirst that's been quenched, even though I still consider myself a killer and I still love it. I'm more happy seeing people happy. Like now that I know, say, Jared's passion even more deliberate on killing a big deer, I can promise you I'll be more pissed at him if he don't share a deer kill he killed of a big deer, because I want to celebrate, because I know how dedicated and committed he is. And he needs somebody that can even make you like, dude, are you kidding me? Congratulations. Or this is amazing. And so,
well, that's the big thing, man. Jared and I have this conversation all the time, and it's why we hunt together a lot, is that think about going out there and killing that big 170, 180 deer, and then turning around and realize you don't have anybody to share it with. Then really, what does it matter, man?
That's more depression than not having a place to kill it.
Absolutely.
And that's what comes with that is I want to be friends and understand that the people I respect and admire that do it the right way, which y'all do, especially Jared, his work and determination, is he needs somebody he can call that knows what it took to do that. And the resources, the money, the sweat, the tears, the sacrifice, which people say, oh, bullshit, that ain't sacrifice. You know, it is. You had to leave something behind. You can't be great at something without leaving something behind. Mm-hmm. You can't be a great musician without not being necessarily not the best father when you left your kids to be a better musician. You can't be the best hunter without, you know, telling that girlfriend or wife, like, hey, I know we talked about, you know, going to the Gulf of Mexico or maybe Bahamas, but that moon chart, I was talking to the juries, and man, I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. That sucker's going to show up. We all have done it. So
yeah, boy, it'll take everything you got. That's for sure.
Yeah, man.
Well, and Michael, just to, you know, respond to what you're saying, I don't feel singled out at all. I've got a lot of respect for your experience, you know, in the field and in the industry as well. And definitely I need to be brought off my pursuit and I realize it's just I'm the only one that cares about it. Right. You know, and Jeremy's got a support for me and stuff, and vice versa. Right. Like we all want to achieve those goals and stuff, but we have to keep them in perspective. So I've got a ton of respect for what you're saying there. I know it carries a ton of weight. So we'll heed those words for sure.
I'm starting to feel like old Ted Nugent. Everybody calls him Uncle Ted. I'm starting to feel like Uncle Waddy. It's almost like now people in the industry, and I will, you know, the Robertsons are this way, especially Phil, bring people out to the farm. I have friends of mine that get stressed out, and I'll bring them to the farm, man. We'll build a big old fire and we'll get after stuff. And I was like, man, I know you don't care nothing about this squirrel hunt, but come on, let's run these dogs. The next thing you know, it'll be like, oh my God, there'll be a maniac, or let's run some traps, or you know what, let's go over here and do this and run. And next thing you know, I've had people almost with tears in the eyes come up and hug me and say, thank you, Wadell, for resetting my.
Yeah, it's breaking the cycle, man.
And I love that. And so, you know, I'll end with this, man. You guys have accomplished some amazing stuff. I have been happy for the people listening that don't know. These two guys both have been instrumental in our success and what we've done just on our .com and helping us understand innovation. Like I said, as we talk about technology, you guys have been the spearhead of our industry in a lot of ways, and being able to streamline opportunities for companies. And y'all have done it not just for Bone Collector. So success comes in many ways. Some comes in tagging a big deer, some comes in entrepreneur, some comes in dedication, being available and there for somebody. And so I don't think I'm anything special, but what I can do for the people I respect is be there. If you need a reset, my wife is a hell of a cook. She's hardcore. She's funny. Jeremy will tell you.
Oh yeah,
man, she'll jump that butt too. She's funny. But I just want, as somebody who's had a chance to experience a lot from a young age to where I'm at now, I'm still technically, I guess, young, but I just want to sometimes just hug people and say, come on, slow down, get you this good cigar. Let's relax and have a good time. And then I can reset you and you're going to have funner going back to chase the 200-inch deer. Or I might say, hey, I guess what? I'm going to tell you something now. Oh, Uncle Waddy got you a place. We about to go chase a 200-inch deer, and it's still going to be fun. I got it. Just sit back and watch. If I tell you go sit in that holler and spend you 3 or 4 days, you better go do it because I ain't going to lie to you. So I just learned to really slow down and speed up when I want to, and I've learned that our value is time. We get one lap, boys. We get one lap. Yeah. Whatever time we spend with this, we ain't getting it back, and I think we spend it wisely chatting and discussing. So much respect. I hope y'all continue y'all success and keep kicking butt. And I appreciate the conversations y'all having with everybody that y'all have on.
Well, we appreciate it, man. And appreciate the compliment as well. And yeah, we have fun doing it. And that's the one thing that we can say is like, especially with this podcast, is like it's not work. Like we enjoy these discussions, having these conversations. I mean, there's not many places we get to do it. Obviously we'll see each other at ATA show this week, but like it's a rarity anymore in today's society. So it's a blessing for us to be able to sit down and have these open discussions and have people listening to them and, create chatter. I mean, that to us is a healthy part of this hunting community. And, we're going to keep doing it.
Y'all keep rocking and rolling.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Sever.
Well, one of the biggest things that we always talk about is what our arrow setups are. And this year we're shooting the Sever broadheads. I think we're both shooting the new 2-inch titanium broadhead. And so, we're huge proponents of expandables. And I know we've had this argument back and forth with people, but we're
right and you're wrong, and you just need to accept it.
We just want to have a giant wound that pumps out blood. That's the bottom line.
We build our arrow setups and shoot bows, to maximize penetration, and we shoot broadheads that are going to give us the best blood trails, the most hemorrhage possible. And so part of those setups is we're also shooting the Easton arrows here coming up pretty soon. So we've shot the Victory in the past, and there's all kind of great arrow shafts on the market, but like we're looking for a whole system from broadhead to arrow components to the arrow shaft itself. And the more we look at some of these Easton shafts and the components that go with them, that setup's going to be really deadly for us.
Yeah, I'm actually using the Easton traditional axis right now in my traditional setups for both my recurve and my longbow. I've got a 100-grain brass insert on those, and then obviously I'm using a fixed blade broadhead on those specific shafts.
Right on.
So, but yeah, our goal is always to be shooting the best broadhead that we think is going to be the most lethal for our setups. We've done plenty of research. We believe in the Sever broadheads, and we hope you would check them out at Sever Broadheads as well. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to episode 165 with Michael Waddell. We're going to see him at the ATA show in St. Louis this week, which if you're listening to this now, was last week. And just cool discussion to have. Good to get him on the podcast. And man, it's if you're listening to this, it's mid-January now, and we're just kind of entering that
cruising along
funk time that we gotta get through. So, but yeah, we'll keep everybody posted, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Later.
Take me